Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, February 4th meeting of the Wake County Board of Education. Our board previously convened and came to order at 5 p.m. for a special ceremony where we welcomed our newest board member, Ms. Christina Abe Gordon, to the board representing District 2. Having already established that we had a quorum and having already recited the pledge, we'll move into our regular meeting agenda. First, as always, I remind you that Wake County Board of Education meetings are held for the purpose of conducting the business of the Board of Education. The public is cordially invited to attend board meetings and observe the board as it conducts its official business. Persons who willfully interrupt, disrupt, or cause disturbances at an official meeting may be directed to leave by the presiding officer. Members of the audience should show respect for the speakers at who come up to speak to us by refraining from loud comments, noises, or other disruptions. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with General Statute 143-318-17. And with that, we need to entertain a motion for to consider our meeting agenda. Vice Chair Swanson.
So moved.
We have a motion from Vice Chair Swanson to adopt the meeting agenda, and we have a second from Ms. Rice. All in favor of the meeting agenda, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's not the most dramatic first vote you'll cast, but it is the first, so I wanted to recognize that. So turning to our newly approved meeting agenda, the first item we have is a special item. We have a recognition event tonight, and I'd like to recognize Dr. Will Chavis to provide an introduction for us. Is Dr. Chavis here? Okay, so in that case, we will skip straight to the esteemed principal of Ligon Magnet Middle School, Mr. Gary Duval. Welcome, Mr. Duval.
Good evening, Chair Avery, Vice Chair Swanson, distinguished members of the board, and Superintendent Taylor. As we come together to celebrate Black History Month, it's important to reflect not only on the progress we've made, but also on the enduring legacy of those who have fought for equal education. One such legacy is found in the rich history of John W. Ligon High School, now Ligon Magnet Middle School, located in downtown Raleigh. Opened in September 1953, Ligon High was the only high school in the city for black students. Standing as a beacon of hope and opportunity during a time of segregation. Named after John W. Ligon, a distinguished local educator and community leader, the school was the largest school construction project in North Carolina at the time. Despite the challenges of segregation, Ligon became a model for black education, attracting talented teachers and preparing students for success. Throughout its history, Ligon has also had to adapt to change. In 1971, following the desegregation of schools in Raleigh, John W. Ligon High School was converted into a junior high school. Then in 1982, the school transitioned again, this time becoming part of the Wake County Public School System as a magnet school, ultimately earning the name of Gifted and Talented Magnet Middle School. Today, Ligon continues to stand as a symbol of excellence through rigorous academic course offerings, dynamic electives, and specialized arts programs that enrich the educational experience of our students. As we reflect on this legacy, we are reminded of the powerful words of James Baldwin, who said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." The history of Ligon is a testament to the courage and resilience of those who have faced adversity head-on. It also serves as a call to action for us all to continue the work of ensuring equality and excellence in education for every student. Today, we not only celebrate the past, but also honor the voices of the future, our students, who continue to carry the torch of change, creativity, and hope. It is my pleasure to introduce one such student, a talented young scholar and artist, Solana Mack, a 7th grader at the Ligon Magnet Middle School, who will be performing a beautiful rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing. This anthem, often referred to as the Black National Anthem, has long been a symbol of resilience, pride, and unity in the face of adversity. I ask that we all rise, if able, as we listen to this moving performance. Thank you.
every voice and sing till they can never think with harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the lifting skies. Let it resound out as a rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith and the darkness and sorrow. Sing a song full of the faith and the pain that has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on to victory has won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chasing on, felt in the days when unborn had died, yet with unsteady feet and not our weary feet, march in the days for which our fathers died. We have come over a path that tears has been watered. We have come treading that path through the blood and the slaughter. Out from the gloomy past till now we stand at last by the white gleam of our bright story's path. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way. Thou who hast by thy light led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Let's start free, straight from the places of God where we set. Let's drunk with the wine of the world before thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land.
All right, please be seated. So that was, I think I speak for all of us when I say simply amazing. And I hope as we took time to appreciate that, you also took a few moments to listen to Principal Duval and really hear the importance and the significance of the institution of Ligon, both as one of our most prominent and history-making high schools and the work it does today as a magnet middle. I I'm proud. I know that one day I'm going to be sitting there watching the Grammys with my kids, and I can say, I remember when I saw Solana Mack, and they're just going to roll their eyes, but I'll remember. So thank you so much for joining us. What we're going to do is, because the next part of the meeting agenda is our public comment period, we're going to take a brief recess just to break down some of the sound equipment. I'd encourage you, unless you're leaving, to please stay seated so we can then continue on with the meeting as soon as possible. But again, if I could, just one more round of applause for Ms. Solana Mack. And we'll sit in recess for no more than 5 minutes. Again, I encourage you to please stay where you are. All right, we should be good to go. Okay. Again, we really appreciate any opportunity we can get for our students to come in, share their gifts, share their talents, and was so glad that Ms. Mack could join us with Principal Duval this evening. The next item on our agenda is our public comment period. So speakers speaking on items on the night's agenda will be heard before speakers commenting on other topics. We do give priority to the students that have come out to speak with us tonight. All other speakers will be heard in order of sign-up. Only the person speaking at the podium will be able to stand. And again, all attendees that are not speaking, we ask to remain seated. Concerns related to personnel issues or student matters that can be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, and other policies. Please know that we do have staff here tonight. If you do have a pressing matter that's come before you, we might be able to direct you to the staff person to try to get you some assistance before you leave tonight. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, speakers are encouraged to address their comments to the Board of Education, those of us up here, and must refrain from personal attacks and insults directed at individual staff, members of the general public. It takes a lot of courage to get up and speak before a body like this. Whether you disagree or agree with the person, please show respect and do not interrupt their comments with any comments or noises of your own. During public comment, for those of you who are speaking tonight, you may speak up to 3 minutes. Please note that the microphones are adjustable. Depending on your height, you may wish to raise them or lower them. When your time begins, when you begin to speak, that's when you'll see the green light come on. You can continue with your speaking. Don't be surprised or shocked. You'll hear an audible tone. That first tone, and when the light goes from green to yellow, that's just a signal to you that you have 30 seconds remaining in your time. Again, you can finish your remarks when the light goes from yellow to red, and you hear the second tone. We will need you to conclude your remarks and then vacate the podium so that the next speaker has an opportunity to speak. We do have a lot of speakers tonight. We're going to do our best to cycle through everybody efficiently, so the more that you can respect the time limits, the more we'll get a chance to make sure everyone is heard. Speakers are asked to, respect the time limit. As I just said, speak no more than 3 minutes. And with that, we'll go to our first speakers tonight. We have two speakers who have signed up. We'll start with Bailey Owens, who will be followed by Phoenix Bilodeau. Is Bailey here? Welcome, Bailey.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Bailey, and I'm a junior at Apex Friendship High School. Every child deserves the chance to learn an environment free from fear. Unfortunately, immigration enforcement near and in schools has created a climate of anxiety and instability for immigrant families in our community. Parents are afraid to drop their children off at school, students are distracted and distressed, unable to focus on their education. These are not hypothetical situations. They are happening here and now. An attack on one of us is an attack on us all. Imagine you are a second grader and your best friend gets called to the office and never comes back. This is terrifying and confusing. School should be a safe space for all students to learn. This creates an environment that is filled with fear and anxiety. Students have already been through so much. The fear of ICE entering schools is just too much. People talk about the anxious generation. This is why we are so anxious. We have lived through multiple school shootings, continued lockdown drills, and now we aren't sure that our friends are safe at school. Adults worry about what cell phones and social media are doing to us. This is merely a distraction. Trust me, cell phones are the least of our worries. We worry about the daily threat of violence. We worry about our friends getting taken out of our classrooms. We worry that our friends will return home to empty homes. I know you are working on a policy, and I urge you to be thorough and unrelenting in the protection of our staff and students. Please stand for my friends. Thank you for your time and your commitment to our community.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Phoenix Bilodeau.
Good evening, board members. Today I just want to read you 14 little scenarios. Okay, so number one, just a couple of weeks ago, one of my classmates at school was wearing a Make America Great Again t-shirt, and it had the silhouette of an AR-15, and imagery like that violates dress codes, and some schools even don't allow political shirts at all. But it happens all the time, and if we penalize nationalism, we're deemed unpatriotic. Number two, people across the nation and even in our state are having their homes raided by ICE. In order to circumvent their constitutional protections, 30,000 immigrants are to be imprisoned at Guantanamo Bay. It's like there's a disdain for human rights. Number three, transgender people have been targeted all the way from the municipal level to the federal level. We are the alienated, and we are the common enemy, and we are the scapegoat. Number four, government officials claim that they will use our military power to take over Greenland. Many are embodied due to their belief in military supremacy. Number five, I found out that my school has been violating Title IX for at least 2 years, and of course that Title IX protections are being stripped away. Sexism is everywhere, and it's becoming acceptable. Number six, individuals or groups can get removed, flagged, and banned from social media just for speaking out. Individual children can have the Secret Service sent to their school just for speaking out. We're losing free speech because the media is controlled by those in power. Number seven, I've overheard several of my peers talking about how our nation won't be safe until we get rid of the illegal immigrants. It's true that our nation is unsafe, but they're pointing at the wrong people. Number eight, there are schools that are having to teach the Bible or recite the Ten Commandments. Public schools. Number nine, have you noticed that one of the most powerful businessmen in the world is currently controlling things in our government even though nobody elected him? Number 10, North Carolina, among others, does not allow teachers' unions, and we are among the lowest in workers' rights. Number 11, musicians like Billie Joe Armstrong have voiced their concerns through their art, all to be criticized and looked down on by authority figures. Number 12, officers will detain students for emotional outbursts, even putting them in handcuffs. We seem to want to put a lot of people in jail. Number 13, we are governed by a group of people with aligning views who don't care about those who dissent. Number 14, did I mention the guy we didn't elect who is controlling government spending? These 14 scenarios are all representative of the 14 identified. Number 3, using scapegoats as a unifying cause. Number 4, supremacy of military. Number 5, rampant sexism. Number 6, controlled mass media. Number 7, obsession with national security. Number 8, religion and government are intertwined. Number 9, protection of corporate power. Number 10, suppression of laborers. 11, disdain for academics and the arts. 12, obsession with crime and punishment. 13, rampant corruption. And 14, fraudulent elections. Now, I know that this is an issue for other places, and I understand that, but we are at school to learn, and school shouldn't be subjected to any of this when we're there. I think that school should be off limits, and I ask of you to please not let fascism into our schools.
All right. So we're 2 speakers in, and we have about 20 more to go. And so I do want to ask people in the audience to please, whether it's the most wonderful speech in the world or whether it just bothers you to the core, please refrain from making comments or noises during the other speakers. I know that, it's nice to affirm someone that you believe in, but if someone else is speaking and they get other comments that maybe are not as nice, it's hard to have an orderly meeting if people who are not speaking are making noise during the presentation. So I do want to go back to the rules and just stress for everyone that we are in a government meeting. We do want everyone to be able to speak and be heard, and I just ask for your cooperation. So our next speaker tonight, we now move to our 2 speakers who are speaking about on-agenda topics. The first is Margaret Bilodeau, who will be followed by Becky Lou Hobbs. Good evening, Ms. Bilodeau.
Good evening. Hello, board members, superintendent, welcome to the school board. I'm in your district. I'm here to address the 2025 legislative priorities. I commend the board for recognizing the urgent need to fund public education and protect the rights of all students, especially our most vulnerable, including transgender and undocumented students. These priorities are critical as we face unprecedented attacks on public education, with private, unelected entities increasingly influencing education policy and federal proposals to eliminate the Department of Education. Our state must uphold its constitutional duty to provide every child access to a free and appropriate public education. Lack of funding is already making this difficult, and further cuts will only deepen the crisis. The way we overcome these challenges is by supporting one another and standing as a united community. However, division is being intentionally manufactured by targeting marginalized groups. When these groups are scapegoated, it distracts from the larger goals, one of which is dismantling public education altogether. Make no mistake, what starts as targeting one group will not end there. We must see this for what it is and respond by protecting all public school students. Every child in Wake County has a right to a safe, welcoming school environment where their identity is affirmed, their history is honored, and their families are respected. No one can claim moral superiority while simultaneously advocating for the exclusion or erasure of any child. We should be removing barriers to education, not creating new ones. Our schools belong to all of our children, and discrimination and intimidation have no place in them. It is essential that we continue providing an accurate and inclusive education that allows Black, Brown, and Indigenous children to see their histories woven into the fabric, to see their stories woven into the fabric of history. History cannot be hacked apart just because some find parts of it uncomfortable. If we think those parts are ugly, then we must ensure that we never repeat them. I urge the board to maintain this legislative priority and strengthen protections for marginalized students. Continue to rely on expert, data-driven guidance when formulating policies. Do not give in to inflammatory rhetoric based on fear and misinformation. Continue to protect the private information of students and families. And please do not allow entities on school campuses who seek only to terrorize children and disrupt their education. Board members, community members, this is our time to come together. Divided, we're weak. Together, we're strong. We will not let fear divide us. We will not stand by while anyone terrorizes our community because they look, love, or sound different. We will not allow our children to be erased or dehumanized. We're a community, and we're stronger together. And I'm going to finish Rowan's speech. He'd like to point out that according to Britannica.com, a concentration camp is defined as an internment center for political prisoners and members of national or minority groups who are confined for reasons of security, exploitation, or executive decree, almost like the one sending 30,000 presumed immigrants to Guantanamo Bay.
Thank you, Ms. Bilodeau. Our next speaker is Becky Lou Hobbs. After Ms. Lou Hobbs, we'll go to our off-agenda speakers, and our first speaker will be Mark Dixon. Good evening, Ms. Lou Hobbs.
Hello. Good to see you guys again. I'm Becky Lou Hobbs. I'm a mom to 3 amazing kids who either are currently attending Wake County schools or have attended them in the past. And I'm also chapter chair of Moms for Liberty in Wake County. Thank you so much for your time. First, I want to talk a little bit about the legislative agenda, and I am highly concerned because what I see is a continued discrimination and continued focus on anything but academics. Now, I've been speaking here for a few years. You know, 10th Amendment of the Constitution says anything not stated in the Constitution is a power of the state. Education is a power granted to the state. There's nothing in the Constitution giving it a power to the federal government. It needs to be the state. But that being said, part of this federal invasion was involved with Title IX. And I've been very happy with what's been going on for the past few weeks, starting with January 9th, when federal courts vacated Biden's overreaching Title IX changes. That last year in July, that this school board rushed to implement. It included language that redefined sex, redefined what sexual discrimination was, and left the free speech of people in question. Further executive orders addressing DEI, biological sex, CRT, and I know that there are more coming that will have to be looked at. Are you afraid of losing your federal funding like you claimed last year? Here's last year's budget. Almost 10% comes from the federal government. What's that, $300-odd million? Why aren't you afraid of losing it now? Why are you still letting these policies that the courts have ruled and vacated? They are not to be enacted. You've got policies 1710 and 1720, just to name a few, that have implemented this language that need to be changed. It's been three and a half weeks since the court ruling. It hasn't appeared in it wasn't on the policy committee. I haven't seen it on the agenda. And of course, you don't post things in advance enough. I don't even know if it's coming on the policy committee meeting. But we need to revert these policies back to the pre-July 16th versions and remove that language and protect our kids. So with that being said, that goes through pretty much everything. But I want to point out that the mandate of the school system is to provide an academic education. That's it. Not to provide morality or anything like that. That is the job of the family and of the parent. You need to stop interfering.
Thank you, Ms. Lou Hobbs. Our next speaker is Mark Dixon, and Mark will be followed by Fernando Martinez. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening. I got to go off script here for the first part. I'm here to talk about boys volleyball again. You all received a package from me back in December. But maybe it's proper I demonstrate to you what this has done for my son, Thomas. He's a junior now at Panther Creek, very proudly. About a year ago, he's playing for his club team, first tournament, all right? So I used to play and I was a coach. So the moment my son went from being a boy to becoming a young man, I saw it happen right in front of me. Here's what it looks like. Team lines up. He got put in the middle, so hands up, and I watched him, right? I'm just sitting there as a casual parent. I see him and his eyes. He looks over to his left. He finds the setter. Sorry, I'm not pointing at you. Finds the setter, finds the middle blocker, and that was the moment where my son never looked so confident. He loved playing. He found his thing. And so now he asks, like many, many other students, to play. And they are handed on a silver platter, the offering, fully funded season, everything included, not just a check from some entity, to engage. So what happened to my student in the last year? Well, his grades got better, his time management, everything is going well. He found his thing and went to the DECA regional event. He joined DECA. I didn't see that one coming. Now he's going to Greensboro at the end of the month as a registered Wake County business owner to compete at the state level. It's because of the sport. And I'm not standing here in front of you without the sport being a big part of my life. So what I'm really concerned about, though, is the students are told, hey, the county's not going to support, but it's up to the individual schools. But I am very upset, and it looks like there's something going on behind the scene where I go to the individual schools, I hear reports, they will not engage. How is this possible? And I never got a message back from any one of you. How is this possible unless there's something going on? I'm following the rules. I am going through every channel that is afforded to me, and I don't think I'm getting something back. But what's most concerning is what I read in the email, which was that volleyball has to align with the district's broader strategy. What is that? That's how I'm going to end. Please tell me what that is.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I appreciate it. Next speaker is Fernando Martinez, who will be followed by Joseph Deaton. Good evening, Mr. Martinez.
Good evening. Dr. Taylor, Ms. Harity, board members, congratulations, Ms. Christina Gordon. It's hard for me to be here again in this position where I am, along with the Education Justice Alliance and many other community-based organizations that work with parents and students in Wake County. We have been coming here for more than 10 years to advocate for improvement, the improvement of the schools. And quite honest, we identify ourselves as public school defenders, because we not only come here, but we also go to the General Assembly, and we advocate for more funding, we advocate for more teachers, and we are families, parents, students, and public school defenders. But it saddens me to be here again, because we've been here in 2018, 2019, when the people in the office was going after my community, the immigrant community. We are thankful for Dr. Taylor and some of the board in this in front of me right now for thinking about guidance for schools in case of immigration and custom enforcement coming to the schools. And at the same time, I'm here to invite you to be bolder. If there's any time where we could be stronger, Wake County is one of the largest school districts, not only in North Carolina, but in the country, and people will follow your leadership. Our families are confused. Our families are afraid. The very same idea of having immigration in the schools, sacred places. We're talking about churches. We're talking about hospitals. We're talking about schools, learning environment. If there is any people who impact our life, you can attest to this, are teachers. You always have a teacher that you remember that it was a person that you would love to look up to, and some of the programs that you had in the schools. But now the community is afraid to go to schools. We need a stronger guidance. We need trainings for the area superintendent. We need trainings for school bus drivers. We need training for some of the leadership at the school level about what are the difference between a court order and an order signed by another agent, because those practices have been proven in my community that they lie, they cheat. In my own family, we have experienced 2 deportations, and they always try to trick people. So that has been proven, and we need a stronger protections. We need a stronger guidance from this board for you to be a leader in protecting and being on the side right of history. Years from now, people are going to look back to you, and you have a choice now to stay quiet, to stay silent, or to be part of history and take the right side. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Joseph Deaton, who will be followed by Martha Hernandez. Good evening.
Last fall, I unsuccessfully petitioned the board not to include gender identity in its Title IX policies because that requires schools and teachers to socially transition students. This active intervention conditions the majority to go on medically transition, whereas studies show that the majority will outgrow gender confusion without intervention. Medical transition is detailed in SOC 8 from WPATH. SOC 8 claims it was developed by following the process of the National Academy of Medicine. This was blatant, let's not and say we did, as revealed by discovery during lawsuits against state laws banning medical transition on minors. First, practically all 119 authors have significant conflict of interest, contradicting Academy guidelines. Second, SOC 8 states that Johns Hopkins was contracted to perform systematic evidence reviews, but WPATH suppressed publishing most of them because little to no evidence supporting various treatments was found. This is serious scientific misconduct. Third, SOC 8 states the authors used the Delphi process to achieve consensus. A few treatments were rated as we recommend, which means they think it's strongly supported by evidence, but many more were rated as we suggest, which means it's their opinion, but not supported by evidence. Under pressure from Rachel Levine in the Biden HHS, WPATH leadership changed many of the we suggest to we recommend, violating the Delphi process of their own members. The chapter on adolescence, most relevant for us tonight, even says that systematic review was not possible for lack of quality evidence. Most outrageous, after SOC 8 was published, WPATH issued a correction in which minimum age for all treatments except one were simply deleted, again at the insistence of Rachel Levine, so that SOC 8 could be cited to bolster the lawsuits. Wake County schools must not cooperate with sending vulnerable young people into this medical fraud. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker tonight is Martha Hernandez. Excuse me. Our next speaker tonight is Martha Hernandez, who will be followed by Carmen Flores.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Marta. Yo vengo aquí como abuela de niños estudiantes y quiero expresarles todo lo que esto ha conllevado a mis niños. Ellos viven con una angustia tremenda. Ellos tienen miedo, nosotras también. El llegar al autobús, estar esperando por un tiempo ahí, llegar a la escuela también. Yo pido de la manera más atenta que se tome prioridad para nuestros niños su salud mental, su seguridad y que no sufran bullying en las escuelas ni en ningún lugar. Muchas gracias, espero y tomen en cuenta esta petición. Muy, muy importante para nosotros, como padres, como abuelos, la salud mental de nuestros hijos. Gracias.
Gracias. One moment here and we'll get the translation. One moment.
Are you Carmen? That was Carmen, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Here is our interpreter. So she says, hello, my name is Carmen Flores, a community server from the grassroots group Justicia en Esperanza.
Oh, 1 second, please.
Okay. Okay, so but I thought it was this, so I didn't.
Pero interpreta lo que dijo, nada más el nombre es Marta.
Okay.
No, pero lo que trae escrito es el
Okay. All right. All right, so I'm going to try to summarize because I thought I was going to read this one, you know. So basically what she was saying is that her family is afraid. I mean, all the kids are so afraid to come to school. The kids do not want to come. They are afraid to go to take the bus. They are suffering from bullying because of this thing, being an immigrant. And she's basically asking and begging you to enforce something to have clarity on this and basically to defend the families and the well-being of those students. And I'm sorry for summarizing, but I thought I was going to read this one.
Thank you. Señora Flores?
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Carmen Flores, servidora comunitaria del Grupo Base Justicia y Esperanza. Soy residente del condado de Wake, madre de 3 hijos que han asistido a las escuelas públicas. Como miembro de la comunidad inmigrante, estoy viviendo unos tiempos muy difíciles al ver tanto ataque hacia nuestra comunidad. Como madre, vivo día a día con el temor de qué puede pasar con mis hijos. Roman, mi hijo menor de 8 años, diariamente escucha mis consejos de qué debe hacer si algo pasa. Hoy estoy aquí junto a más padres y estudiantes para pedir al superintendente del sistema escolar del condado Wake su apoyo a las familias de sus estudiantes, su postura firme de no colaborar con la migra, de que nuestros hijos estén seguros en las escuelas, que no permitan que sean interrogados por ningún policía de las escuelas sin la presencia de sus padres. Basta de injusticias, basta de tener miedo de que algo pase en el segundo hogar de nuestros hijos. Las escuelas deben de ser el sitio más seguro para ellos después de casa. Un día asistí a inscribir a mis hijos llena de ilusiones. Hoy estoy aquí llena de miedo, temblando. Y sé que al igual que muchos padres, y madres, exigimos la migra afuera de las escuelas. Gracias.
Gracias. Now we'll have the translation.
This is the one. Okay, say hello. My name is Carmen Flores, a community server from the grassroots group Justicia y Esperanza, Justice and Hope, a resident of Wake County and a mother of 3 children who attended public schools. As a member of the immigrant community, I am living through one of the most difficult times, witnessing so many attacks against our community. As a mother, I live every day with the fear of what could happen to my children. Roman, my youngest son, just 7 years old, listens daily to my advice on what he should do if something happens. Today, I am here alongside other parents and students to ask the superintendent of the Wake County school system to support the families of their students. We demand a firm stance against collaborating with immigration authorities, ensuring that our children are safe in their schools, and that no school police officer will interrogate them without their parents present. Enough injustice, enough living in fear of what could happen in what should be our children's second home. Schools must be the safest place for them after home. One day, I walked into a school full of hope to enroll my children. Today, I stand here full of fear, trembling, knowing that, just like me, there are thousands of mothers and fathers. We demand immigration enforcement out of our schools.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. All right. Our next speaker is actually Sarah Wilder, who will be followed by Laura Hogg. Not to jump to conclusions or anything. Good evening, Ms. Wilder.
Good evening. So, I'm kind of going off script for this whole thing, but I got my trusted Post-it note. I'm probably one of the least suspecting people that needs to be talking in front of the school board, but I am a clinical social worker and a licensed clinical therapist and addiction specialist that's worked in my field for the last 10 years, and I've been watching kind of behind closed doors all of the different changes over the years, but definitely since COVID and now currently with the political atmosphere. Stress is the issue. And I've also sat on the board for the Career Advisory Board for Southeast Raleigh High School to try to get people to understand what mental health looks like, not only in our individual lives, but then the family systems that we go home to, the school systems that we all participate in, and even the work environment. So I'm a privately owned business, so I'm doing a lot of that impact work from corporate level as well as to local government level. But for me personally, why I'm here is I set out to be what I needed when I was younger, and to be that person that you could hold space for the things that you go through at a teenage developmental level, some of the things that you can't control, hormones, whatever the case may be, but also what do you do when your child starts using or experimenting with drugs? As a parent, how do you handle that? But also as a child of a parent, how do you handle those conversations? What can you do about it? So I'm coming here tonight to offer you myself as consultation, whether it be from the school board level or whether it be from whoever gets to see this. There are resources out there to deal with the emotions that you're feeling right now, but unfortunately they never go away. That's the tricky part of them. And it's going to be a long-term change that we have to do from every single level of our society in order to be able to see all the changes that clearly everyone has been trying to advocate for a very long time. And I'm just here to provide my contribution to that, since mental health has been a very closed conversation, and still very much is, considering that my reach is really only one-to-one sometimes with billing people's insurance, and I'd like to make that make sense at a larger level. So thank you for your time and consideration, but I would really hope that you guys choose to empower the students and equip teachers and every level of administration to how to deal with all of this change and emotion going on right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilder. And before you leave, we do have someone on staff that we can connect you with.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Where would I need to go to?
If you
Okay.
want to just step over here.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker is Laura Hogg, who will be followed by Nicole Baldridge. Is Laura here? Okay. We'll next go to Nicole Baldridge, who will be followed by Dr. Edith Nieves. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for being here. My name is Nicole Baldridge, and I am a parent of 3 students in Wake County and a former teacher. I come to you tonight as a mother and a community member. First of all, before I get into this, the pain that a mother feels is universal, and it was very clear, even if you don't speak Spanish, how painful and scary this is, and I urge you to listen. Take that into account and do something to protect these families. They're clearly in a lot of pain. So what am I here for? I'm here to talk about DEI and tell you what it is and what it isn't. Some of what DEI is, despite what people may tell you, ramps and sidewalk curb cutouts, that's DEI. Subtitles and closed captions on your TV and phone, that's DEI. Family restrooms at the airport and other places, that is DEI. Parental leave, paid time off, DEI. Non-smoking areas, end of indoor smoking areas, that is DEI. Being able to have medical professionals and your coworkers use your preferred name, not just queer people, your nickname, that is DEI. Rooms to pray and meditate in at work and other public places, DEI. What DEI is not, again, despite what you may have heard and people will tell you, hiring an underqualified person for a job, that's not DEI. That doesn't happen. Hiring based on race just to meet diversity goals, no such thing. That is illegal. A new fad or buzzword, DEI has been going on for decades. It is not new. It has just been called many different things. This is just the name we're using now. DEI is the broad term used to make schools and workplaces accessible for all people. It is a term that is applied to all accommodations necessary for non-typical students, staff, and parents to attend our public schools. It is what makes schools more inclusive and more reflective of the community in which they sit. I have personally attended many DEI training sessions. These range from how to make curriculum more accessible to students on the spectrum to how to scaffold instruction for students that have learning differences. Scaffolding means to build in instruction so that everybody has access. It is DEI that helps to give us the ability to have empathy and give access to those in need. All of our students come to us with different things and different needs, and it is our job as teachers to ensure that they can all learn. Good teaching means scaffolding instruction when needed, and it means adding depth and breadth when needed. DEI gives access to the gifted learners and the non-gifted learners. It is your job, and I urge you to continue to control school curriculum and allow teachers to teach what they need to.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Edith Nieves, who will be followed by Tammy Fitzgerald. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Edith Nieves. I am a board-certified pediatrician with 15 years of experience, and my number one priority is taking care of the children, and that including immigrant children. Recently, the Secretary of Homeland Security rolled back a policy that limited immigration customs enforcement from making arrests at hospitals, doctors' offices, places of worship, and schools. This action brings fear and hardship to immigrant children and their families. They are known to increase toxic stress levels in children. The American Academy of Pediatrics opposes any policies that are detrimental to the children's health and well-being. We have robust evidence that toxic stress disrupts brain development and impacts mental health. Though every child is different, children who experience toxic stress may display the following signs at school: acting withdrawn, crying spells, hyperarousal, difficulties focusing on schoolwork, fear of being separated from caregivers or family, which may lead to school absences, poor appetite. In plain terms, these children are operating in a brain survival mode. How can schools support students and families? Set a tone of safety and respect. Make your school a safe space through public statements of support reaffirming every child's right to education. These statements are most effective when grounded in vision, mission, and stated in the strategic plan of the school district. Be aware of the peer dynamics in your school environment. Deal directly with any derogatory language or behaviors from peers that are rooted in prejudice. Use these moments as teaching moments. Assure caregivers that any information that the school has about the student immigration status, it is only available through an order from a federal judge. Be proactive and hold meetings with families who may have a lot of questions. Consider bringing legal experts, other social services programs to present about relevant topics. Our leaders must remember that immigrant children are children. It is our duty as a society to safeguard the well-being of children. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tammy Fitzgerald, who will be followed by Renee Seckel. Good evening, Ms. Fitzgerald.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the board. Chairman Haggerty, thank you for allowing me to speak. In December, the Biden administration withdrew a Title IX rule they had pending and decided not to pursue it. January 9th, a federal judge in Kentucky vacated nationwide the Title IX rule that the Biden administration had just passed in August last year. Then, on January 29th this year, President Trump issued an executive order ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schools. And just today, the Civil Rights Office in the Department of Federal Education has issued a letter of guidance, a Dear Colleague letter. And they cite all of these things that have happened in the recent past and state that the Biden administration, the Office of Civil Rights, is now enforcing the 2020 version of Title IX, not the 2022 version. And your rule that was adopted last fall is based on the 2022 version. So I didn't see on your agenda tonight an item suggesting that you repeal this, But what is going to happen, because it's been very clearly stated by the President and the Department of Education, is they are going to withhold federal funding from this school system if you continue on this folly. So I know that you have transgender students going into girls' bathrooms in high schools in southern Wake County and all over this county. And if that continues, the President is going to cut off your federal funding. So my suggestion is that you close the Office of Equity Affairs right around the hall from you, because that's going to be, that funding will be cut off, and that you revise what you're doing, revise your policies to the 2020 version of Title IX. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Renee Seckel, Renee Seckel, who will be followed by Olga Lililia Romero Hernandez.
Hi.
Good evening.
I came tonight to deliver a civics lesson, but first I want to say to the parents in this room, my heart goes out to you. I can't really say much more than that because I got a... Yep, sorry. So, civics lesson. So there's been a lot of talk about executive orders, and Donald Trump said this, and Donald Trump said that, and they're shoving papers in front of him, and he's just signing stuff willy-nilly. And we're all supposed to believe, I saw this on Ms. Caulfield's Facebook page, you know, that, oh, we have to rush right now to roll back, start discriminating against kids, make our schools less safe because the money's going away. So a civics lesson. You might not know, but we have 3 branches of government. Donald Trump is the head of the executive branch of the government, Ms. Caulfield, and his role, those executive orders, he can tell executive branch agencies how to enforce the laws. He does not have the power of the purse. He cannot make laws himself. The agencies themselves cannot make laws. They can interpret the laws, they can issue rules, but those rules must go through a comment period and a notice and comment, it's called. So this, oh my gosh, it's been 5 whole days since this executive order came out, and why aren't we discriminating against kids again? It's a little bit silly. Those executive orders do not have the force of law until they're properly vetted, until the agencies go through the rulemaking process. And let me just tell you, we've already seen the lawsuits. These lawsuits have to go through the courts. So President Trump can issue an executive order saying that he's an eagle, but I'm not going to watch him fly. So just a little bit of information there. And also, for the folks in District 1 who might be interested, Ms. Caulfield, you've been saying some really crazy stuff on your anonymous Twitter account for years now, and now it's leaking out into the public. So I urge the members of District 1 to take a look at the kinds of things that Ms. Caulfield says and ask yourselves, is this who we want representing our children? Is this the person who's champing at the bit to make our schools less safe for children, to make our children less safe because she's anti-vax too? Take a look, decide for yourselves.
Our next speaker is Olga Lililia Romero Hernandez, who will be followed by Alicia de Dios Fernandez.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Olga.
Un momento.
¿Cómo está? Buenas noches. Buenas noches. Le voy a pedir que por favor hable 2 oraciones a la vez y haga una pausa para que el señor Saavedra proceda.
Oh, está bien.
I have asked Ma'am to please speak 2 sentences at a time and make a pause for the interpreter to proceed. After that, she can continue.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Well,
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Olga.
okay, good evening. My name is Olga.
Hoy quiero tomar mi voz como madre de una hija ciudadana americana
Today I want to use my voice as a mother of an American girl
que asiste a una escuela pública del condado de Wake
that attends a public school in the Wake County Public School System,
y que está siendo afectada por los ataques contra los inmigrantes.
and she's been impacted by the attacks towards immigrants.
Su salud mental está siendo afectada.
So even her mental health is being affected.
Y hoy quiero pedir respeto, tolerancia e inclusión
And today I am asking for respect, tolerance, and inclusion
en las escuelas públicas del condado de Wake.
in the schools of the Wake County Public Schools.
Para todos los niños que asisten a diario,
For all the kids who daily attend our schools,
sin importar su estatus migratorio.
regardless of their immigration status,
Hoy abogamos por consejeros especializados en salud mental. Muchas gracias.
Today we advocate for counselors that are experts in mental health. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Next speaker is Alicia de Dios Fernandez.
She's not here.
Okay. Next speaker, Ofelia Romero. Not here? Okay. Next speaker, Martha Perusquia. Next speaker, Jessica Guandique. Welcome.
Hello, guys. My name is Jessica. I'm a United States citizen, and my husband is a DACA recipient. We have a son who was born in the country and attends the Wake County Public Schools. We both work daily to be able to provide a better future for our son. Therefore, my mother-in-law, who is undocumented, is the one who takes him to school every day, since my son did not qualify for public transportation to school. Not only am I worried about my mother-in-law putting herself at risk by dropping my son off at school, given the political changes that are emerging, I am worried about my son's mental health, because even though he is a citizen of this country, there are psychological damages that can be caused to him by him seeing how a child or himself be a victim of racial profiling, with the bullying that occurs at schools when teachers don't pay attention. That is why I would like to see more preventative measures taken to ensure that not only that schools are safe, but also how they are treated, and that school counselors and teachers are attentive to what is happening to our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Griselda Alonso Rojas.
Lo puedes leer si quieres después aquí. ¿Está bien? Digo todo y luego tú lo lees.
Okay. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Griselda Alonso, soy organizadora comunitaria.
Okay, good evening. My name is Griselda Alonso, and I am a community organizer.
Primero me gustaría comenzar con unos datos.
First of all, I will start with some data.
Aproximadamente 350,000 residentes indocumentados hacen un aporte clave a través de sus impuestos para la economía de Carolina del Norte.
Approximately, 350,000 residents, undocumented residents, make a huge contribution, a key contribution by paying their taxes through our economy in North Carolina.
Según un informe reciente del Instituto de Taxación de la Póliza de Economía, las personas indocumentadas contribuyeron un total de 692.2 millones de impuestos al Estado durante el último año.
It says, according to the taxation and economic policy, the undocumented people have contributed, with 692.2 million paying, the taxes to the state just, last year.
Este aporte financiero es crucial para mantener la infraestructura, las instituciones y los servicios públicos en este estado.
These contributions are essential, to keep and maintain, the infrastructure, and our institutions and public services in the region.
Como organizadora comunitaria, abuela de un niño que asiste a una escuela del condado de Wake, ha sido devastador ver cómo nuestra comunidad está siendo empujada a la desolación.
Okay. As a community organizer and grandmother of a child who currently attends, a school in Wake County, it's been very devastating to see how our community is being pushed, to totally despair, and is being affected, and especially in their mental health, and that includes all our children.
Les pido a nombre de todos estos contribuyentes indocumentados que ayuden a crear espacios seguros para nuestros hijos, nietos y sus padres, asegurándoles especialistas en salud mental y asegurándoles que el personal de cada escuela no sea cómplice de este daño sistemático.
Okay, here I'm asking you to please, provide, experts in mental health to all these undocumented people who contribute, to our economy, and to making sure that our schools are a safe place, and please do not be in complicity with this systematic, harm.
Y por último, quiero agregar algo para que lo recuerden. Tal vez no pusieron atención en la frase.
Okay, and finally, I would like to add something else, and I'm going to repeat it. Maybe you didn't pay attention at the beginning of what I said.
Las personas indocumentadas contribuyeron un total de 692.2 millones de impuestos al Estado en el último año.
Okay. So the undocumented immigrants contributed $692.2 million, in taxes to our state.
Si dudan que no tenemos derechos, pagamos taxas.
If somebody's in doubt that we don't have rights because we pay taxes.
All right, thank you all. And again, when I say thank you all, I really do mean that. Thank you for coming out and sharing your views tonight. Thank you for respecting our process and for respecting the other speakers. It takes a lot to get up and speak in front of a public meeting like this, so thank you. All right, we have concluded our public comment period, and so now we'll turn to the next item, which are our board and superintendent comments. And so I'll turn it to our superintendent, Dr. Robert Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to you all. My comments will be a little longer tonight because I want to include comments that I didn't have at the last board meeting. February is Black History Month and a time for our students and staff to deepen their understanding and appreciation of the many contributions of Black Americans to the fabric of our nation. This year's theme is African Americans and Labor, which encourages a focus on the various profound ways that work of all kinds, free and unfree, skilled and unskilled, intersect with the collective experience of Black people. I know all of our schools will be imparting knowledge and insights on this and other aspects of Black history throughout the month of February. Black History Month is also a time of celebration, so I would like to invite you to Lincoln Magnet Middle School on February 28th at 6:30 for the second annual Dare to Dream Black History Month program. So we do thank all of our staff that are putting that program together. Our magnet schools have once again demonstrated that they serve as national models for everything magnet program should be. 51 of our magnet schools were honored last month with National Merit Awards. Of our 51 winners, 18 were named Top Schools of Excellence, the highest merit award given by Magnet Schools of America. To put that in perspective, there were only 24 schools in the entire nation to receive that designation. So if you do your math, 18 out of 24, you know where we stand. In addition, 20 Wake County Public Schools magnet schools were named Schools of Excellence, and 13 were named Schools of Distinction. To receive a National Merit Award, schools must demonstrate commitment to high academic standards, curriculum and innovation, successful desegregation and diversity efforts, and consistent delivery of high-quality educational services. So you can find a full list of our winners on our webpage, wcpss.net/2025 Magnet Awards. For more than 40 years, our magnet programs have been at the vanguard of the magnet school movement, promoting diversity while creating unique learning opportunities for countless thousands of students. The 51 schools recognized for meeting or exceeding lofty national standards demonstrate that we are continuously working to build on our success, to level up for the benefit of our students and our communities. I'm tremendously proud of the students and the staff at all of our magnet schools, as well as the hardworking folk in our magnet office who provide invaluable support. So thank you, Dr. Lane. Again, congratulations to this year's winners. I'd also like to congratulate our latest group of teachers to attain or renew the National Board Certification. 128 educators learned in December that they are our newest National Board Certified teachers. An additional 171 staff members have renewed their National Board Certification. Absolutely. All told, there are 3,250 teachers that have achieved the National Board Certification while employed with our district. That is just outstanding. So we remain committed to supporting teachers at every step of the certification process, from initial candidacy through renewal. The certification process requires teachers to analyze their teaching practices and the impact of their instructional decisions on student learning, to take on leadership roles, and to collaborate effectively with their peers. So we encourage and support teachers to pursue national board certification because we believe that establishing high standards for teachers leads to increased student achievement. And again, you can find more information on our website. This week we are celebrating our outstanding school counselors as part of National School Counseling Week, and we have much to celebrate. There are about 550 school counselors currently serving students in our district, and they, as we know, are second to none. 16 of our schools have earned recognized ASCA model program or RAMP status, the highest national honor a school counseling program can receive. That gives us the most RAMP certified schools in the state. I'm going to read that one more time. That gives us the most RAMP certified schools in the state. The data is clear about the impact of effective school counselors. Their work improves academic performance, reduces disciplinary problems, and promotes mental health. Our counselors have been instrumental in helping our district reach a record high graduation rate this past year and reducing chronic absenteeism over the past 2 years. And just in case you forgot, that's 91.3% graduation rate. We will continue to do all we can as district leaders to give our school counselors the resources and support they need to continue and expand their important work. I hope everyone will take time this week to let school counselors at their school know just how valued they are. Next week, we will have the opportunity to celebrate another valued group of employees, our hardworking transportation staff. Love the Bus Week is an annual opportunity for students, staff, and families to show their appreciation to bus drivers, safety assistants, mechanics, and other transportation personnel. Our transportation staff are going above and beyond to make sure tens of thousands of students get to and from school safely each and every day. So it is only fitting that we take this time to make sure they are recognized for performing this critical role. I know our schools will be providing breakfast treats, handmade banners, cards, and other goodies throughout the week. Look for pictures of these celebrations on social media under the hashtag WCPSS Loves the Bus. It goes without saying that our transportation team performs an absolutely vital function for our district. So I'd like to personally express my gratitude for all they do to support the success of students, and I hope you will all find a way to do likewise. I do want to end my comments today and address our public concerning the recent issues that have come out of the executive orders out of the federal government and the president's office. I want to reaffirm that as your superintendent, our number one priority is to make sure that students are safe when they come to school. We know that executive orders have been issued, but we are happy to report that the president has still designated schools as safe zones. He has no intention at this point of sending anyone to our schools to enforce immigration law. We have shared guidance with our schools, with our principals, to know and understand what they should look for if indeed an agent were to come to school. And so we want to reaffirm that our job is to make sure that our students are safe. More importantly, as executive orders come down, we want to make sure that we are compliant with the law. Whatever that compliance may be, it will make some happy, it will make some unhappy. And when the law changes, that opinion also flip-flops, and we understand that. Last and more importantly, we want to reaffirm to everyone that as executive orders come down, our number one responsibility is to interpret those and understand what is required of the school district, and that will always be our priority, to making sure that we follow the law, but more importantly, making sure that students are safe when they come to our public schools. I will reaffirm that we do not ask for immigration information. That is not a part of the duty or the job of public schools. The law is clear across this country that any student that enrolls and comes to a school has a right to attend, and that is what we do every single day. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. You know, if I look a little rattled, if I look a little tired, I'd confess it has been a difficult couple of weeks now for me as we try to get our orientation and our bearing with the flood of different executive orders and developments we're hearing about in Washington, D.C. And to hear the language that's used about, shock and awe, military terms, right? This was Mr. Hershey, I apologize, you've heard me talk about this already, but, shock and awe was a military campaign from the first Gulf War that was intentionally designed, and friends of mine that served tell me it was to basically indiscriminately just bomb the heck out of everything to create panic, destroy morale, sow confusion. And it was very effective. It crippled the enemy, but at the same time it destroyed hospitals, schools, museums. And the justification was that, well, sacrifices had to be made. And so to hear that kind of terminology, words like shock and awe, being used to describe how our own government will issue rules and regulations and governance for our country really disturbs me, because the sacrifices we're making here are our kids in our communities, right? We've all gone to school. We've taken our civics classes. We can agree to disagree about how much power we think one branch should have, or the extent of states' rights versus federal rights. These are debates we've had throughout the history of our country. But when you're willing to sacrifice the well-being of some of our most vulnerable citizens for the purpose of sowing confusion and panic, I mean, I can't tell you how much that disheartens me. Whether it was the first executive order that came out to threaten federal funding, which was immediately challenged, and then there was a federal stay, and then it was rescinded and rolled back, and there's still questions about what exactly it meant and what it would apply to all of these orders that are direct threats about funding. The federal funding that we get supports some of our most vulnerable students. Over 20,000 special education students in Wake County. And you've heard me say, Wake County has so many special education students that if you took them out of the county, they would form the 14th largest school district in North Carolina. That's the direct impact to families right here in Wake County. When you talk about our Title I programs and the number of educational services that are being provided in schools to assist families that have the lowest economic resources of their own, programs like pre-K to help all kids get ready for that first day of kindergarten, to have the educational and social skills to interact with other kids and to be good students, to be able to receive that instruction. These are essential services, and we know they're effective. And why would you threaten those services? Even programs that don't necessarily affect our most vulnerable kids, like our magnet school programs that we know have incredible academic benefits to kids across this county. In our work session, we just listed off some of our most recent magnet school grant recipients. East Wake Magnet High, Wendell Magnet Elementary, Wendell Magnet Middle, Zebulon Magnet Elementary, Zebulon Magnet Middle, Centennial Campus Magnet School, East Millbrook Magnet Middle School, Wake Forest Magnet Elementary, Wildwood Forest, just down the road, Dillard Drive Magnet Elementary and Dillard Drive Magnet Middle, East Cary Magnet Middle, Smith Magnet Elementary Schools. The loss of those funds will directly impact kids. They fund teachers and instructors that we cannot afford without those grants. Over $42.5 million just in the magnet program. That doesn't count the money we would lose for special education students. That doesn't count the money we would lose for counselors and for programs for, our McKinney-Vento students, our students who are homeless, for students that are victims of abuse, for students that are here as refugees, maybe from a war-torn country for whom English is not their first language, but they're trying to get an education. I don't know what the future holds. I really don't. And I'm really shocked every day, shock and awe, about just the level that people are willing to go to make political points. I wish I could give you more comfort, more reassurance. But I really am unsettled about where we are right now and the future going forward. We know there are people that are standing up for these students, that are standing up for these programs, that are going to fight them in courts, fight them in the legislature, in Congress, with all the powers that are available to us. And if you support these programs, I hope you'll advocate for them as well. But I've been trying these last several weeks to concentrate locally. What can I do locally on what I can and can't control? But they're bringing these issues to us. And so, I hope all of you will join me in advocating for our public schools, our public school children, and the families that benefit from all of these programs. These are not numbers. These are not dollars. These are real people. These are real children right here in Wake County. And I hope I can count on you. Thank you. I guess I ended too soon. I needed to turn it over to Vice Chair Swanson.
You did. I was waiting for the segue. But I want to start off by thanking Dr. Perkins at Connections Academy for hosting our BAC meeting last night. And we had a very robust conversation around our updates on our strategic plan that was led by Dr. Robinson and Dr. Alfred Keith, and a deep dive into the the upcoming cell phone policy that was led by Dr. Crane. And we had such great conversation, and I was sharing with Dr. Sexton earlier that was the most engaging I've seen from our BAC. So thank you all for lifting that up and bringing us into, thank you. And I also want to just thank the student who kind of set the tone for us this morning, or this afternoon, or earlier this afternoon, excuse me, I feel like it's been such a long day, who reminded us, and I hope you're able to sit there and listen to the words of Lift Every Voice and Sing, which was written in a time that was much darker than the moment that we're currently sitting in, where hope's unborn was dying, folks literally dying. And so to see what folks were able to pen to paper to give us hope, I hope that resonates you and you can sit and marinate with that as you look to a place for hope and for change. And the part that I particularly love in this song is, stony the road we trod, better the chastening rod, felt in the days when unhope had died, yet with the stated beat, have not our weary feet come to the place where our forefathers sighed. We have come over a way that, with the tears that have been watered, we have come, I'm trying not to sing it because I don't want to mess it up. We have come treading the path through the blood of the slaughter, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of the bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us this far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Let's our feet stray from the place of our God where we met thee. Our hearts drunk of the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy land, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land. And I think that is very reminding as we kick off Black History Month, which is American history, and American history is Black History Month. And I think it's also important that we take a moment and really just to look to our history for our hope. Today we celebrate the 112th birthday of Rosa Parks, who was known as the godmother of the Civil Rights Movement, who did not just sit down and sit back and was portrayed as this feeble older woman who was just tired of giving up and giving in, but who strategically organized to spark change in a moment where yet again hope unborn had died. So let us continue to celebrate not just Black History Month during this month, but for the next 365 days as we really chime in and lean into those places, because I also want to encourage you to lift up figures and history figures that we may not know, such as Ella Baker, who was a key organizer and a strategic organizer who gave light to young students. I'm linked to the students in this room because she is one who dared folks to dream, who played a key role in the sit-ins that happened at my beloved alma mater, North Carolina A&T, where we celebrated the 65th anniversary of the sit-in that sparked changes where 4 A&T freshmen sat down to challenge injustice, to challenge Jim Crow, to demand equality, that sparked a movement throughout the South. And those 4 young men were Ezell Blair, David Richmond, Ezell Blair. Lord, they're going to kill me. They're going to take my A&T card. I should know this. I've been out of college for 10 years, so we're going to blame that. But the A&T 4, not the Greensboro 4, is what we know them as, who, again, changed the world. So that little Black History fact will come back next week because I don't want to take up much more time. But thank you all, but continue to lift up your voice and to agitate, aggravate, and do something to shift the moral compass of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Swanson. Ms. Edmonds, are you ready?
Thank you. So welcome, Ms. Gordon. We're excited you're here. Glad you're here. Congratulations to former school board member Susan Evans on her election as chair of the Wake County Commissioners last night, and to Sophia Jackson, who was sworn in yesterday. These are 2 public education champions that we are very lucky to partner with. February is National Magnet Schools Month, which I just learned like an hour before our meeting. So thank you to Dr. Kimberly Lane and her department and all of those who came before you to give Wake County the excellent, robust magnet program that we have here in our school system, and a system that is a system of magnet schools that is the envy of and the model for the nation. Congratulations to Vernon Malone College and Career Academy, Middle Creek High School, and Westlake Elementary School for receiving their RAMP certification. I know it's a tremendous amount of work. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, senior leadership, and our legal partners for the guidance issued last week on how to respond if and when ICE shows up at a school. I'm grateful for our community partners, NCAE and the Education Justice Alliance, who are working with families and teachers. And thank you all for coming tonight. It really is very impactful, and we appreciate you very much and want to hear more from you, so come back next meeting. I also want to shout out Siembra NC. They've got some excellent resources on their social media pages. That's Siembra NC, and I know there's many others, and EJA will help us learn about all of those resources. On Saturday, I participated in an event called Vote a Girl Project. This is a national program offered by the League of Women Voters that's aimed at teaching young girls about civic engagement and the importance of voting. And it encourages girls to see themselves as leaders and even running for office. And I participated in a panel with several panels with Mayor Vivian Jones of Wake Forest and Cary Town Councilwoman Lori Bush. Spoke to the girls and answered their questions about what we do in our jobs and our roles and what it's like to run for office. To honor Black History Month, I have 2 things. First, a shout out to Queen Bee, Beyonce. On her Grammy win, she is the first Black woman to win Country Album of the Year, and as many of you know, I hope you know, she announced a Cowboy Carter tour, which I think is exactly what we need in 2025. I'm planning to go with my son. Second, our Wake County Public Libraries have a month worth of programming called Celebrate Black Brilliance. These programs honor Black creativity, history, and culture. You can find a full list of those events by age group at wake.gov/libraries/blackbrilliance. And then lastly, I do want to thank all of our educators for your commitment to teaching and learning and doing what's best for students in these extremely challenging times. I left it to Chair Haggerty and my colleague, Mr. Hershey, to say things that I just couldn't find the words for. So thank you, Chair, for your remarks. But the leadership that our educators, the leadership at this table, and those of you across the room, I'm prepared to do all that I can do to support you and to do what's best for every single child every day who comes to us in Wake County Public Schools. That's the focus: their safety, their well-being, their education, and their care. And recent days have been extremely hard, and we know that we are going to, unfortunately, have more hard days and hard weeks. But we are Wake County, and I'm honored to work with you all and to meet those challenges with you all and to respond to any attacks on public education. Our children are worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edmonds. We'll next turn to Dr. Ng.
Thank you, and welcome, Ms. Gordon. You do know that you have the best seat in the House. Good evening, and on January 14th, I was honored to be a part of the 50th anniversary of East Millbrook Magnet Middle School. I want to thank Principal Larson for including me in the celebration. I was very impressed with all the talent on display that evening, the orchestra, the choir, the art on display. But the highlight for me was seeing the time capsules from 1975 and 2000. Inside the 1975 capsule was a copy of Newsweek magazine with a cover story on the Concorde. So students, I would suggest that you ask your parents or grandparents what the Concorde is or was. The magazine also had ads for the latest fashion and cars from 1975. And also, there were ads in there for cigarettes, which thankfully you don't see that anymore. And as for the time capsule for 2000, there was a list of the top songs from that year, including Bye Bye Bye. Can't believe that it's 25 years old. I feel kind of old now. I want to congratulate all the early graduates that walked across the stage this last few weeks. I was honored to be at the ceremonies for Millbrook High School and Heritage High School. These are always special for me because they're more intimate, and I get a chance to hear the students' aspirations and then also messages from the parents. So it was a very special time, and I wish them the best in their future endeavors. District 3 will have the next BAC meeting on February the 24th, and we will also be focusing on getting feedback about the possible cell phone policy for our schools. So I've invited Dr. Robinson and Dr. Crane to be on hand to lead the discussion and to record all the feedback. I invite everyone in the community to attend. It will be at Bailiwick Elementary School, and I want to thank the staff there in advance and also the PTSA there. Dinner for the staff will be served at 5:30, and the community can join the meeting starting at 6. We are continuing to collect feedback and we welcome emails to help us understand your concerns about this issue. In the meantime, I encourage everyone to pick up a copy of The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. I'm continuing reading that, and it looks at the state of mental health in our youth today and how technology may be contributing to the issues that we are facing. And finally, I know that the community has a wide range of feelings and no doubt a lot of questions about the executive orders that were signed by President Trump last week. And I'm sure that we on the board will have disagreements on what that means. The latest one, the last one, the Ending Radical Indoctrination in K-12 Schooling order is giving a 90-day period for the Departments of Education, Defense, and the Health and Human Services, along with the Attorney General, to gather information and formulate a strategy. And it may affect federal funding for many ELAs, including ours. But it also includes in there a reestablishment of the 1776 Commission to help promote patriotic education in our schools, and to help all of us get ready to celebrate this country's 250th birthday next year. It will also call for a more robust and pervasive educational program to celebrate Constitution Day on September 17th. What all this actually will look like, we really don't know yet. It's true that no direct action is needed by us right now, and a lot can still happen in the next 90 days. However, we have to remember that our primary mission is education, and that parents are our partners in that mission. I believe that the American people want kids to learn the things that will help them succeed in life. While it is important to understand other people's viewpoints, the school is not the place for spreading social agendas. Our schools need to be a place of learning and not a place for social experiments and activism. We want our children to learn the value of hard work and merit, and to judge others based on the content of their characters. The American people are desperate for truth and a much-needed injection of common sense, and to return to a time when American exceptionalism is valued and taught in our classrooms. And to my fellow board members, I know that there is a lot of fear of the unknown. I urge all of us to take actions to be compliant with whatever regulations that may come from D.C., because above all, we need to be a model to our children of what it means to be law-abiding citizens. For example, when it comes to the policies, we do need to make sure that our policies follow the reversal of the Title IX regulations. And I hope that we can do that transparently and without delay. I trust that we will be able to weather the changes together and keep our focus on the education of children, not because of the fear of losing federal funding, but because it is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ng. Our next speaker is Mr. Hershey.
Thank you so much. A couple of things. Appreciate the words of all my colleagues. I will say that if we are searching for truth, we're going to have to wait about 4 more years for that. Because, man, I've never seen someone lie so much as that person. A couple of things that were referenced in public comment that I just wanted to bring to light. A couple of people brought up the federal legislative agenda, and I'm really appreciative of the chair and the vice chair and Dr. Taylor for going down this path. I advocated for it in the past, and it's so incredibly important now with everything going on. A couple of key points to hit on. So for people who didn't see the work session, the first point that we're talking about is, as a board calls on Congress to preserve and strengthen the Department of Education. We list a number of reasons why they support special education funding. They support a lot of funding and a lot of programs that we have. And if you are interested in improving the education of our children, this is something you should be in favor of keeping, because if we lose that sort of funding, it makes it a lot more challenging to educate our children, if that is truly your priority. The other parts in here talk about student mental health and well-being. We hear about it from students who come to speak to us about how mentally, I'll just say, exhausting it is with everything that they have to go through with code reds, now with immigration, gun violence that this country continues to do nothing about. So that's part of our ask to Congress. Infrastructure funding, which I'm going to ask our facilities head at the Facilities Committee next week to kind of talk about, in general, if there are potential tariffs, how we go about buying stuff for our schools, what the process that we have to go through, if that stuff is even readily available in this country, which a lot of it is not, and kind of the general impact. Fortunately, those were paused for 30 days, but it's important for people to understand the impact of those actions on a school system. Another part of our federal agenda ask is for the school lunch program. You know, we want our kids to be able to eat breakfast and lunch for free. That's, you know, having a full belly allows them to be a better student. And again, if we're interested in their education, that's a big priority. And So that, I just wanted to touch on that. Another point that was brought up a couple times during the public comment period was Title IX, and I just want to point out, going back to the old rules makes it tougher to find someone in violation of sexual harassment. So if that's where you're at and you want us to go back to the old rules and make it tougher to find someone in violation of sexual harassment, okay. I get it, it's really about trans kids. Last, I want to touch, two things. One, I just want to thank everybody who came out to talk about the immigration issue and the challenges, if they are here still or not. They have my support, and really, I think a large percentage of the community truly wants schools to be safe places for our students to come and learn. People understand that, like my son doesn't get to decide where he lives. He lives in Raleigh with us. He doesn't have that choice. And so we need to maintain safety at our schools for our students and for our staff, because it's not just our students that are going to feel that. It's going to be our staff, because all of a sudden, how do they react and what do they have to worry about? And they already have to go through code reds. We had one not that long ago in North Hills, and it affected about 7 schools. And I mean, those are not enjoyable experiences for staff, students, or families. And I want to also lift up just making sure we're really emphasizing at schools any bullying around the immigration issue. It's got to be, we can't have it, period. And I don't know if that's message best flows from our superintendent to our principals to our teachers and really to parents to let their kids know, like, hey, we're not having this in our schools. I would appreciate that very much. Lastly, because it's Black History Month, I think it's a good time to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I really want to highlight, as Dr. N mentioned, we're celebrating 250 next year, that for 250 years, I think it's really important to talk about people being hired based on their skin color. And for 250 years, it has been mediocre white men who have been hired based on their skin color. And those are facts. I mean, that's I've heard people say DEI is racist. If that's what you believe, you know nothing about diversity, equity, inclusion, and you know nothing about racism, and that speaks to you as a human being. Within Wake County, how does that impact a school system? It's ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion ensures that our kids who need more help get more help. It ensures that kids, our Black and brown kids who have not had the same educational opportunities over the course of the 249 years of this country, get those opportunities. And it's without lowering standards. That's the thing that drives me nuts the most. Being real, and I've said this before, people who throw around DEI hire is they're just replacing the N-word with DEI hire. That's what they want to say. We get it. You guys are all losers. Sorry. Not anybody in here. I'm not talking about anybody in here. It's what I hear on TV when we had the plane crash and you had people on TV questioning, should I see a black pilot? Do I think they're a DEI hire? No, that's racism, to think that way. And I have to edit my language real quick. I was about to get in trouble with the chair. So let me just close, so in our school system too, and if you look at our staff, and you for 1 second think that any of them are hired with a lower standard, oh man, could not be more wrong. Whether it's anyone of any race, of any gender sitting over there, they are supremely qualified in what they do. That's how Wake County hires. They look for the best and the brightest, and we are not lowering standards. It's insulting to put that on any public education. I mean, we got vacancies, so we're not turning away people because they're white. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Sorry, I feel like it's my job as a slightly better than mediocre white guy to say this. And let me say lastly, why it's important. There was a person hired in this administration, he's the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. His name is Darren Beatty. He wrote, this is him, saying, competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. And he goes on to say, I don't have the quote in front of me, I'm not going to get in trouble and pull my phone out, but he said, he said the problem with this country is that we, play too much to women, he included women, and minorities, and we should not do that. So for those of you that think DEI excludes white women, it does not. Those mediocre white men don't want anything to do with you either. So just putting that out there, and that. Welcome to board comments.
Mr. Hershey, don't encourage.
No, I was going to say welcome to board comments. It's your turn.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gordon, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Well, am I on? Okay. Oh, I will keep my comments short tonight, but I just want to say it is an honor and a privilege. Okay. Am I not speaking? Okay, maybe I'm not close enough. It is an honor and a privilege to be on this board. I do not take it lightly, and I'm sure you have seen my passion come out, and I appreciate you all lifting that up. And I just want to say to our community members, I am so excited to be here, and I look forward to being in the community, and I cannot wait to visit my schools. I know I keep saying it, so next week I will have more to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. We'll come around the table to Ms. Rice.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I'm going to try to keep this as very brief as possible and try not to switch hats this time around the table. With everything that's going on, I almost feel like I need to put on my pastor hat. But I'm going to keep it in the professional realm of Board of Education and in my professional world and dive right into wellness. But I'm going to come from two perspectives this time, where I usually do one, but I'm going to do spiritual and social. But before I do that, I do want to say the proud Principal Duvall and me being the proud board representative of District 4, hats off tonight for representing Lignett Magnet Middle School with Solana Mack, and a student that brought us in so very well with her singing. So I'm excited to represent that particular school, and magnet schools are primarily within my district, right? So there's a passion. So I'm going to have to keep this on pace. I've got something written, but there's a flood of emotions, but I'm going to keep those emotions together. And so I do want to say I would like to honor Black school board members that have served on the Wake County Board of Education that was formed in 1976, almost 50 years ago. And so I heard Dr. Ng and I heard Mr. Hershey talk about 250, well, we're in our 249th year. So I want us to be mindful that we are 249 years as a country. And of those 249 years, only 49 of those years, Wake County Public Schools was integrated. Only 49 years of the 249 years of this country was Wake County Public Schools integrated. That integration came with force. That integration came with mandates that would have only happened had our federal government stepped in. So I need people to please take heed to the behaviors that we have and the mindsets that we have, thinking that we're going to do right or that people think differently just because a mandate came down. When people show you who they are, believed them the first time. And every time of my 50 years, I have seen people on my board, I have seen people in community, I have seen people in my faith community, and I believe you the first time you show me. And so with that, I want to lift up, in Wake County, of 49 years, this is what you have. Clifornia Wembley, Vernon Malone, Harriet Webster, Keith Sutton, Monica Johnson Hostler, Tara Waters, Tyler Swanson, Toshiba Rice, and the Christina Gordon. 9 board members in 49 years that look like us. And you wonder, do we need appropriate practices? I leave you with this analogy, and I may not do my whole thing, and that is everyone understands a child who rides a bike. Everybody wants their child to ride a bike, right? And when children ride their bikes and parents get ready to go out and teach them how to ride their bike, not one parent can identify to say they told their child, get on the bike and ride and walk away. You held the bottom of the seat. You instructed them on how it's going to wobble. You instructed them on how to keep their balance. I want to use that analogy to help you understand when you say that the school education is just to teach and just to share academics. No one just tells a child to come in the last classroom and just learn. No, the teacher is showing them through different programs and structures how to balance the education, how this is needed. You can do it, supporting them with confidence, and what that looks like is what you want to dismantle and call parts of what we call DEI. So no one just goes into something and just say, do it. You don't train your child how to ride a bike in that way. So why do you come in a classroom and think that a child is just supposed to learn because someone says do it? There are parts and structures to come in that are building blocks to these children so that their brains can actually comprehend the information and learn. So now let me switch over to my spiritual hat for you, for spiritual wellness. I stay within the professional, right? It's 8 dimensions of wellness, and one of those dimensions of wellness is spiritual as well as social. So I want to remind us, and I heard a lot of talk about fear. And for those who have whatever spiritual practice they have, mine just happens to be of a faith that practices and calls my God, God, okay? For God has not given me the spirit of fear, but a power, of love, and a sound mind. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God whose words I praise, in God I trust, I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? And the last thing I want to say, when anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me to my soul. But now this is what the Lord says, fear not, for I have redeemed you. And for this, it is fitting and culturally for Black History Month, because my culture of the 249 years have suffered, and it has been in those spirituals and those thought processes of faith that has carried us here into 2025, right? And so the last thing that I'm going to do with you is social wellness around the constructs of honoring Black History Month. This is what you can do. You can celebrate Black culture. Highlight Black contributions, highlight the accomplishments and contributions of Black people and communities. You can read books by Black authors, read more books by Black authors. You can organize a book club. You can volunteer and support Black-led organizations. You can donate to them. You can support employee resource groups that promote employee resources around Black employees. Advocate for Black communities. Get involved in activism, contact government representatives, and amplify Black voices, and most importantly, educate yourself. America, unless you were born here or unless you were here before everybody came over, as we like to say, our Native Americans were already here. History tells us who we are. Believe us for what they've shown us. And I ask everyone to please operate in love, because hate is not a place where we need to be. But if we operate in love, everybody will have what? A positive and productive day.
Thank you, Ms. Rice. Next, we'll go to Ms. Caulfield.
Thank you. So I'd like to welcome the new District 2 board member, Ms. Gordon. I like what she had said about not filling someone else's shoes, but filling your own. So I look forward to working with you and seeing what we can do for our children. February 24th is District 1 next board advisory meeting, and we'll post details as soon as they are available. We're still looking for a school to host, and we'll get you those details. I wanted to congratulate East Wake High School, Roseville High School, and Wake Forest High School, who held their first mid-year graduation. That was Wake Forest High School who held their first mid-year graduation. It was a great ceremony, and I do agree that it's really great to see them in that more intimate service. I wish them all much success in what the new chapter brings. Last Saturday, I attended Account Institute training, which was great to hear from all of the speakers from all over. If you have not heard of their organization through the John Locke, please check it out. There's a lot of resourceful information there. I made a statement about Title IX, and since we moved so swiftly to alter the policy to accommodate Biden's changes, due to the law interpretation and the threat of federal funding, I fully expect that we should do the same to address this policy now. I feel strongly about it because women fought for their safety and opportunities, and they still deserve that right. Trans students also deserve protections, and we have the power to work on a solution for that as well. A solution that does not infringe on rights of the girls in their private spaces. We need to either revert or speak about the policy as quickly as we changed it back in July, when the rest of North Carolina and 22 other states waited for the court's decisions to make any policy changes. If we put half of the attention that we put on sexual content, gender, and racial point of views towards life skills and solutions, imagine the mountains that we could move for our children. What we could do to solve our bullying problems or our drug problems, like fentanyl or laced pills and overdosing. I brought attention to the issue of the vape stores being so close in proximity to the schools. Working with other elected officials, while we still have made some progress, there is still so much more to do. The problem of vaping was one of our #1 issues that we discussed at our retreat. We can make movement on this. It's time to view the problems and solutions through the lens of what is best for all children, no matter their race or gender. We owe it to all of our children to do that. We have a tremendous bullying issue, and it needs to be addressed. Students and parents come to speak to us often about bullying, and it breaks my heart each and every time. We have a huge discipline problem. Children need order. Teachers need the order. Children do better with boundaries and high expectations. There are many things that we can spend this much attention on that help all of our children. Imagine what student achievement and mental health would look like if our children were focused on learning life skills and reaching their dreams, if every one of them knew how to read at grade level, if we put this much time and energy into their math, if we focused on life skills so they felt prepared and empowered to do great things. When our children suffer, and they do, because they struggle to read, then they look at their peers and they feel their brains hurt trying to progress in math. They feel like something is wrong with them. Our gifted students also struggle for the same reasons. They flounder. These pressures lead to anxiety, depression, and drugs, and worse. And if you think our children do not know this, then you need to read the room. Enough is enough. People's lives are torn. Families' children are hurting. So stop with all the politics and get back to the basics so we can focus on education and getting our children back on track to success. Get them excited about their future and their dreams. I feel we've completely lost our way, and it's not just Wake County, but Wake is our responsibility. It's past time to get back to the basics. And for the record, I do not have some secret Twitter account. I barely use it, and more save things on it and read through it. It's more a nickname. I've had it long before the school board, and it is not a secret. It's just not a board page. Anyone is free to see and read. I'm not anti-anything. I am pro-transparency, and I am pro not having our children's welfare being sacrificed for profit or agenda. Parents deserve transparency and accountability, and even more so do our children. Thank you.
And we'll conclude our board comments tonight with Ms. Mahaffey.
Welcome, Ms. Gordon. You've only taken one vote, and already it's been quite a night. First, I would like to thank Dr. Crane and Dr. Robinson for coming to my Board Advisory Council meeting and talking about personal devices in schools and leading that focus group for our families and administrators that were present. When I was teaching, and even here at this board table, there are two things that I go back to. Because at our core, we have to do what's best for students. And in teaching, there's two fundamental things that you need to know. The first is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The second is Bloom's taxonomy. Maslow's hierarchy of needs talks about the things that we need in order to thrive in this world. Psychological needs, not being hungry, not being cold, not being sick or in pain. Safety needs, knowing that you can feel safe in the present, in the future, and moving forward. Societal needs for love and belonging. Self-esteem, and then finally self-actualization. Those are the things, when we talk about social emotional learning, that are important for our kids. We need our kids to feel safe in school, whether it's from bullying, whether it's from an outside force coming into the school and threatening their physical safety. You can't learn if you don't feel safe. You can't learn if you're hungry. Our job is to teach children. But as part of this school system and this school district, our job is to make sure our children are in a place where they can learn. We need children to feel accepted for who they are when they enter our schools. If students don't feel accepted, they can't learn. If we have children who are hungry, who are afraid, who don't feel accepted, we can't do our job, which is to teach children. And that's what it comes down to. And if we can't agree on what makes students feel safe and loved when they enter our schools, we have a big problem in our society. Because I don't care what your kid looks like or who they love or who they are and what they want to be, they need to learn. But we need to accept your children for who they are in order for them to feel that love and to feel safe and to learn. And it makes me very sad to see things not always that way in this country. I grew up in a very small community that is 97% white. I think when I was there, maybe it was higher. I had no experience with many people from many different backgrounds in my community. I made a lot of mistakes as an adult because I just didn't understand. I read a lot of books. I thought I understood, but when you meet people, you have different experiences. People just want to feel safe. People want to feel loved and accepted and know that they're cared for. And our job is to do that for students. And waiting for that.
And it has been seconded by Ms. Mahaffey. All in favor of adoption of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, all of the wonderful items on the consent agenda, including the item for Apex High School, has been approved. Thank you. So we have one action item tonight. This is a review of the WCPSS Board of Education state legislative priorities. This is the document that we discussed on our work session. We had, I thought, a very good discussion. We have made amendments to the document based upon your input, and we present the document to you in its final form. Now, I say final form. I know that we had at least two other specific ideas that people were going to draft some language on. So before we take a motion, well, I guess we should probably take a motion on the agenda first for discussion, and then we'll consider any amendments. Oh, go ahead, Vice Chair Swanson.
No, go for it.
So moved.
Second.
So we do have a motion from Vice Chair Swanson to adopt the 2025 WCPSS legislative advocacy priorities, and we have a second from Ms. Mahaffey. Now that the motion is on the table, is there any discussion or any debate? Ms. Rice.
Chair, I just want to get clarity in reference to the work session comments and information that we shared earlier. Will this be added into what was originally sent to us and then come back again, or?
Allow me to provide some clarity.
Thank you.
So we have two different documents, at least two. This one is specifically for the state. And so we refer to it on our agenda as state legislative priorities. The document you see might only say legislative advocative priorities. No, it's a good catch that we should, in the title, make sure that that it does state state legislative advocacy and state legislative priorities. And I believe that's something we can just direct staff to address without a formal amendment. But the timetable, just to keep talking on the bigger question, is we were also discussing federal priorities and federal policy. And so we had our first discussion of that at today's work session. It did sound like there were a lot of ideas beyond the original ideas that were brought to us, and we didn't get a chance to talk about all of the items in that document. So we will bring that back to our next work session to continue that discussion. This document is only our state legislative advocacy priorities based on the conversations we had at our retreat and at our previous work sessions.
Thank you. I apologize. My brain was still in work session mode versus looking at Assembly to tell me.
Ms. Rice, we have other folks ask that same question. You are in good company. So do we have any other questions or any debate? I'm prepared to speak on agenda items, but let me ask first, before we go to amendments, any questions? Or what you'll see here is we did go through, we've talked about raising teacher compensation, modernizing the special education funding formula that we get from the state, addressing student hunger to support academics, funding our schools based on the actual enrollment so that we are funding each child attending public school. We talk about local flexibility over operational issues, things like being able to modify our school calendar either to align with the community colleges or to respond to weather and emergency-related situations. We talk about K-3 class size flexibility, exploring local funding options to support the capital needs in our schools, things like our HVACs and our transportation system. And we talk about fair and transparent access to school performance data. The importance that we need to prioritize the needs of our public schools and our public school students, and to improve school performance evaluation and make sure that all families can get a fair and accurate comparison of what their choices are as they navigate the world of school choice. So you should see some changes based on your comments to strengthen the agenda or to clarify areas that were brought up. And so I would recommend it to you. So at this point, we do have a motion to adopt it that has been seconded, but I understand there may be amendments or even other questions. Questions first? I'll start with, with Ms. Edmonds and then go to Dr. Ring.
So I do have an amendment, so I need to wait.
Okay.
So
We'll next go to Dr. Ring.
Just to clarify, so is this the final version, like the appearance of it will be how it is, or because previous years it was in that kind of info, like a bunch of graphics and all that?
Yeah, we'll give staff, some discretion and flexibility to format it. Right now, it fits on, one sheet of paper, front and back. If it's expanded and it goes to 3 pages, we'll have more space to fill. So the idea that we could have bolder titles, more graphics, things like that could be added. But things about formatting, I was just going to defer to staff.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate more of the explanation of our positions rather than a nice picture, just my opinion.
I appreciate that, Dr. Ing. Mr. Hershey.
I think I'll be making an amendment, but I emailed everybody Dr. Matillo's language on reducing barriers to teacher licensure. I think that's what we had talked about. And so I need to make an amendment then to, I'm actually asking the vice chair parliamentarian over there.
I will defer to our parliamentarian.
Just, do I make it now, or I thought Ms. Edmonds was waiting on one too?
I would say that Ms. Edmonds announced her intent to make an amendment,
Okay.
but did not actually offer the amendment at this time.
I would like to make a motion that we add this language to our legislative agenda.
All right. If you'll indulge me, Mr. Hershey, I'll
Sure.
read it for the folks in the audience. This would be to add a new section that says reducing barriers to teacher licensure. And I'll just ask for clarification. Of the 3 sections that are in there now, where do you think it fits the best? Under funding, under flexibility and operations, or in evaluation and data? Perhaps
Staring
operations?
I'm open to suggestions. Makes no difference to me.
Okay. Well, let's see how we end up in the final document, and if we need to create a new category, potentially, we'll have that as well. All right. The amendment is to add a section that says reducing barriers to teacher licensure, and it reads as follows: to support teacher recruitment and retention, the North Carolina General Assembly should adjust North Carolina teacher licensure requirements to accept out-of-state licensure tests, eliminate costly additional testing, and reduce other testing and licensure fees. DPI should accept out-of-state tests for candidates who have completed an approved educator preparation program for elementary, defined as K through 6, or exceptional children. General curriculum, regardless of a candidate's years of experience. The additional EDTPA/PPAT test requirement should be removed. Other high testing costs and state licensure fees should also be removed or reduced. And all board members, did you include Ms. Gordon on that?
Yes.
Okay. All board members should have a copy of the specific text of the amendment. So before we begin any discussion, is there a second for the amendment?
I'll second.
We have a second from Ms. Mahaffey. So the amendment to the legislative agenda is on the table. Mr. Hershey, would you like to speak to the amendment?
I'll defer to Ms. Mahaffey.
Well, I'm in favor of the amendment because I do think, having been a teacher and had to move my license from out of state, there are a lot of barriers, especially when we have a lot of vacancies for teachers, not just in Wake, but really throughout the state. I don't know that this would necessarily be favorable to the legislature, but I think we shoot for the moon. It may be adopted, and as we talk, it may just be limited to states that require a praxis exam rather than states that have their own exam, but I feel like that gets really into the weeds. and having done the Ed TPA, oh God, that would be great to get rid of. That's just a huge barrier. And while, important, if we're trying to get teachers in our schools that are qualified, I think that this is a great way to put this out there. So I am in favor of this as is and will support it.
Thank you, Ms. Mahaffey. I have a comment or two, but before we get that, does anyone else have any other questions, either for other board members about this one in particular? Yeah, the amendment. Yes. Okay. I'll say, I know sometimes, if you're seeing it for the first time, it takes a minute to sort of digest it and really think about it. And sometimes I'm reluctant to just accept something if I don't know everything about it, because I look for, are there unanticipated problems? Are there barriers or obstacles? But one of the reasons we're only seeing this tonight is that it did go through staff and it was vetted. And so I know that our staff has looked at it already, potentially have identified any potential conflicts or problems, and giving it to our HR folks to review, and this language coming back, I'm comfortable with it, and I'll support the motion. Are there any other thoughts or questions about the amendment? If not, I'll entertain a motion to call the question on the amendment. This is not a motion on the actual agenda. This is just simply to amend the agenda with Mr. Hershey's amendment.
Move to call the question.
All right, we have a motion to call the question. Is there a second? All right, all in favor of calling the question that's just ending debate, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move into immediate vote on the motion to adopt the amendment. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amendment has been adopted. It will be incorporated into the document, just with the discretion that once we get all amendments, we'll figure out the best placement for it in the document. Okay? All right, are there further amendments? Ms. Edmonds.
Thank you. So I would like to move that we add language back in opposition of private school vouchers. We had it in our, and I do have language, we had it in our 2024 legislative agenda. Since that agenda was passed, HB 10 expanded private school vouchers in our state exponentially. So we are on track to spend almost $10 billion in less than 10 years on private school vouchers. This year alone, we have spent more than $616 million on private school vouchers in 24-25. And the expansion is not just about public schools, or the voucher funds are not just about public schools, public education. Where this has been done, universal vouchers in other states, it has blown massive holes in state budgets that impact other state services and state projects, such as Ohio and Arizona are two examples. So the fact that we had it in our 2024 legislative agenda and we don't have it in this one, I think is quite frankly insane and makes no sense. So I mentioned it at our board retreat. I mentioned it in the work session when we talked about this, the last time we talked about this. So the motion specifically is to add in that very top paragraph, funding public education, to add another sentence that comes directly from the 2024 language, where it would say the Wake County Board of Education calls upon the North Carolina General Assembly to prioritize public school dollars to fully fund public schools, not private school vouchers, period.
And this is under the funding public education category, correct? Or is this under the...
The very top, yep, funding public education.
Yeah, I just
Yep.
wanted to make sure. Okay. Has everyone heard the amendment? Does anyone need to see it in writing?
If somebody needs to see the language, if you go to the homepage of WCPSS and pull up our legislative agenda, I just did a search, but I can send it to you.
Or if you just even want to read it out again.
Yeah, I
for
can read it
folks.
again. But it literally, I'm reading that language except for the formal intro, which would be copying from what's in front of us for this 2025 agenda. The Wake County Board of Education calls upon the North Carolina General Assembly to
and then prioritize public school dollars to fully fund public schools, not private school vouchers.
Okay, so if I can ask you a question before we get the second. So right now, the current language I have has more after that sentence. Are you deleting that, or are you rephrasing that?
What do you mean more
So-
after that sentence?
So the sentence that I have in Assembly says, "The Wake County Board of Education calls upon the North Carolina General Assembly to make important systematic reforms regarding the funding of public education to ensure that public schools, which are mandated to serve all enrolled children, regardless of income, health, or ability, receive the educational funding they need to provide a sound basic education."
My motion is to add a second sentence
Okay.
that reads, the Wake, if you want to say also, the Wake County Board of Education also calls upon, or, but I'm just saying, copy that language, the Wake County Board of Education calls upon the North Carolina General Assembly to prioritize public school dollars to fully fund public schools, not private school vouchers. So in other words, I was refraining from doing another comma with another item, but just having a second sentence related.
I appreciate that. I misunderstood. I thought you were having that as a replacement. I understand it's a second sentence
No
now.
problem.
Okay. You've heard the amendment. Is there a second for the amendment?
I second it.
We have a second from Ms. Rice. All right. So the motion is on the table. I know, Ms. Edmonds, you gave some explanation while making the motion, but is there anything else you'd like to say in support of the amendment, or we'll hear from other board members? Okay. Are there any other questions, any debate or discussion of the amendment?
I do. Discussion. I just want to say the reason why I know it wasn't in there before, we've kind of talked about it, and I think to see now why it's important based upon our earlier work session, the data that was shared and presented to us around what our dollars look like, how we've decreased and how we are seeing the huge privatization of the schools, a chunk of where the money is going. And I think that we have got to support our schools where we can, and at least having a sentence in it in referencing the trend that we're seeing based upon being spoken to today from data experts, right, about the opportunity gaps and what it's going to look like in our funding. We need to at least say something.
Thank you, Ms. Rice. And we do have the language in there as well that Ms. Edmonds had suggested at the work session, that $616 million she referenced, just to try to provide some more data, just for folks that can't, we don't have it up on the screen. So if you don't, it's online, but if you were following from the last meeting, I wanted to let you all know that was in there. Mr. Hershey.
Thank you. I'm of two minds of this. One, I 100% agree with with Ms. Edmonds on this issue. The other part of my brain is saying, if we're going to start adding things like that say what our values are, then there's a lot more things we can add. And I've been thinking about this legislative agenda. They're never going to revisit vouchers, at least not this year. And so I don't know that they'll listen to us anyway, but I don't want to give them something to just throw the document away if it's right at the top. I don't know what making that statement gets us for this particular thing. And again, in complete agreement, it's vouchers are drive me nuts, but what do we get out of adding it would be my question.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hershey. I'll go to Vice Chair Swanson and then Dr. Ng and then back to Ms. Edmonds.
Mr. Hershey, you and I are on the same page, and that was my original thoughts as well. And I am comfortable with the language that's under the Fair and Transparency Access to School Performance that says prioritize the needs of public school students. The board believes that funding the public school needs should be prioritized and met before funds are allocated to private schools. If the state continues to provide public dollars for private schools vouchers with $660 million in state tax money appropriated last year alone, then all schools, public, private, and charter, accepting public dollars for K-12 education should be required to provide the same student achievement and budget accountability information. This information will empower families to make informed decisions that ensure responsible use of taxpayer dollars. So that's the language that I'm comfortable with. I think it speaks to the root of what Ms. Edmonds' motion is, and I think it's there. I also do want to be very intentional in being mindful that this is what the legislative body will be. This is, Dr. Ng reminded us this last year. This is not a wish list. This is what we will be instructing our lawmakers to push the district forward. And so I just get a little weary of, the buy-in that we could potentially lose from lawmakers that we need to really do what is best for our public schools. So although I am with you on that issue, I just can't support that language at this moment. Does not mean I'm elected to a public board. I'm going to continue to advocate, but I also think there's other key things on this legislative agenda that we need to push, and I'm afraid that one particular issue could derail all of that.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Coming back around, we'll go Dr. Ng, Ms. Edmonds, and then I saw Ms. Caulfield. Ms. Mahaffey, did you have your hand up too? Or okay. Then we'll come back around to this side of the table. Dr. Ng, then Ms. Edmonds.
So in terms of the principle of it, I think prioritizing public school before other options is what I would be comfortable with in the gist of the document. Now, we are, presenting this in the hands of legislators who, will be, mix of from both parties. And I want to make sure that, like Mr. Hershey said, we don't want a document that will be kind of dismissed right offhand by something that is already, that they have already decided on for the time being that, and we don't want to risk losing their attention on reading the rest of the document, which have a lot of important points.
Thank you. We'll go to Ms. Edmonds.
Thank you. So I won't vote it down because there's too much in here that, is important. But with a couple things. With regard, I feel like if we don't state our values in a document like this and be very bold about our values and what we believe in, I don't know what we're doing. This notion of being timid and afraid to put forth our values in bold, very plain language because we're afraid that they won't look at any of the rest of it, I just think is short-sighted and not very creative. With regard to Dr. Ng's point about, both sides, both parties looking at this, there are rural counties in North Carolina that have 0 private voucher receiving schools in them, and those lawmakers are largely Republican lawmakers, and what has happened with this voucher funding should appall them, because their counties, their citizens, their school children get absolutely no benefit from it whatsoever, and those dollars primarily are funneled to the large urban district private schools. So I don't see it as a partisan thing at all. I see it as a fiscally irresponsible thing that the majority has done with the explosive voucher funding that actually hurts some of the very Republican right-leaning constituents and families and lawmakers in this state. So I urge us to be bolder, and my motion stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edmonds. Coming back around the table, we'll hear from Ms. Caulfield and then Ms. Mahaffey.
Thank you. I appreciate the language that is there, that is written. It speaks to transparency and accountability, and I think that's really what the main issue is. When it comes to the funding, I know we've hashed this out before, but this is not being withdrawn from public funds. It's it's another fund that is being used. Yes, could they use other money? I would rather see some of the money that they have going towards things that would help our schools, like for our meals, nutrition in our meals, stuff like that. But I think it does, what's written here is speaking about transparency and accountability. I think adding the other language actually tells the families that cannot make it in this same box that we are working in, that their tax dollars don't matter. So I would like to keep it the same. That's what I vote for.
Thank you, Ms. Caulfield. Ms. Mahaffey.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, these funds are coming from our public schools. We heard from Mr. Nieder how that funding is coming from DPI and how DPI is not able to have funding for our schools. That being said, I'm opposed to vouchers. I don't agree with, I was grateful that we were able to have that opposition in our last board session, knowing that vouchers were going to be a big part of the legislative agenda with education. Going into this biennium, looking at the body on Jones Street, I'm with Mr. Hershey and Mr. Swanson that, yes, we need to state our values and we need to be realistic with what the current tenor of the legislative body is. And I agree. They're not helpful to our districts throughout North Carolina. And, if we had a small statement under prioritized needs of public schools, we would prefer no voucher money go out, sure. But do I think that it needs its own sentence at the beginning? No.
Thank you. Ms. Rice, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Chair Haggerty. I just want to add to our discussion. One, I want to caution us as a board with thinking that if we tiptoe around certain things, it's going to make it better. Our current state of our country shows that that is not the play that needs to happen. We need to learn how to stick to a value and speak it boldly and proudly in season and out of season. Because at the end of the day, our legislators know who Wake County Public School Board is made of. And whether we put something in the beginning or whether we put it down at the bottom, it's not going to sway what they want to do or not want to do for us. And I think we are fooling ourselves when we keep living in this bubble of thinking that if we don't poke the bear, we're going to be okay. No, they're going to do what they want to do when they want to do it and how they want to do it. And they have constantly shown us who they are. So believe them the first time they told us. We didn't believe it 8 years ago, because you're right back in the same situation you in again. And they told you who they were on a federal level. It doesn't matter. It's time to transition the way we've been doing things and not be in a space to think, oh, if I just be a little bit more quiet about it, maybe we won't poke their ego. Their ego is already there. And so I just really want to encourage us to be mindful, can be bold and be courageous in the spaces that we're in, because if we continue in that mindset, we're going to continue to lose. And I'm not saying it out of a thought, I'm saying it through a reality that we're currently living. And if we assess that mindset, we're going to see if we do things a little bit different, we might get some better results. Considering after the list I just read, after 49 years, you only see 9 people that's been on this board that looks like me, because we've done things the same way all the time. So I just want to encourage us that while in some instances it's true, you may not want to antagonize people, but these people are going to do what they want to do anyway, and they're going to encourage us, or they helped us with other school, a law that we needed. But you got to realize they did that because it benefited them to do it for Wake County. So realize that they know who Wake County's board is consisted of and who leads Wake County's board. So please don't think what language you put in a document is going to cause them to either do right by us or not do right by us. They're still who they say they are.
All right. I wasn't going to speak on this one because I think there are valid opinions on both sides. But I do have to respond, respecting your point of view on that. But if the belief is that legislators are going to do what they want to do anyway, then why do we even have an agenda? Why even make the attempt? Isn't it just an exercise in futility? And I understand a lot of people right now think we could be living in a very futile situation. I fully get that. And I don't know what the impact of putting this particular language will be. I agree with the statement. I do. I know that in my work in the past with the legislature, legislators are people. They have egos. They like to be stroked. If you come in and criticize and protest, they're less likely to do what you're asking to do. But, if you come out with something that's a principled position and they disagree, but they can see the value of other things that you're willing to stand up for, in many cases, they can accept that they disagree with you on one issue, and it's not necessarily going to be a poison pill. So, we passed legislation last year with Republican majorities in the House and Senate that allowed us to continue our leadership academies and continue them at an HBCU, the mother of all HBCUs. And I think that part of that success was that I thought we had at least a fair relationship with legislators that wasn't hostile. Do I think including this language makes that relationship hostile? I don't know that it does. And if this is really, where we are and you believe we need to say this, then we should put it in the agenda. But, I would just, I can't tell you what will be more effective, but I can tell you that how you ask the question sometimes does make a difference. And I think this is, a reasonable and modest, especially, on the arguments that could be made, a modest suggestion. So, I just encourage each of you to vote your conscience on it, and we'll proceed and we'll advocate for the agenda, whether it's in here or whether it's not in here. And if it makes it a little more difficult, we'll just have to work a little bit harder. That's all I'll say. Thank you. All right. Are there any more debate or any questions? Ms. Mahaffey?
I have a friendly amendment to Ms. Edmonds' amendment, and if she's opposed to it, then I will withdraw it. Under fair and transparent access to school performance, where it says prioritize the needs of public school students. Changing that first sentence to where it says the board believes that public dollars belong to public schools. In light of vouchers being in North Carolina, the board asks that public school needs be prioritized. So just changing that, adding a sentence, the board believes that public dollars belong in public schools, period, and then continuing with the paragraph.
Does anyone need that repeated? All right, so Ms. Mahaffey put it forward as a friendly amendment. So before we ask for a second, because she also said she would withdraw it if Ms. Edmonds wasn't in favor of it. What I'd like to do is defer to Ms. Edmonds so that if it does need to be withdrawn, it can be done so without having the second.
Thank you. Ms. Mahaffey, I appreciate the spirit in which you offer that, but I do reject it. To me, it is critical that what I am trying to get past, my motion, go under funding public education, out of the gate, top priority, intro to the whole thing. I think that that matters. So thank you.
All right. Any other debate on the amendment? Mr. Hershey?
What about using the language that Ms. Mahaffey suggested in place of, unless you're just intent on using your language, I'm just suggesting that, and people assume they knew how I was going to vote on this. I really was of two minds on this. I was not sure until listening to comments, so just putting that out there.
All right. Was that a question to Ms. Edmonds? Or? Okay. Ms. Edmonds, please.
Thank you. I think it's stated really well in our 2024 legislative agenda, so I don't see a need to get creative with different language. We agreed to it a year ago, so I'm a little perplexed at how we're trying to have some kind of other nuance or something, so no.
All right. Any other questions before we vote on the amendment? Any other discussion or debate?
I'm still in favor of Ms. Edmonds for those 2 points previously mentioned, as well, whether it falls under the very beginning of the sentence or we're still saying the same thing at the bottom. If that's what we believe, and as you, to your point, Chair Haggerty, you said we don't know what it's going to be. I think that if we were bold last year to put it in there, you haven't changed anything, you're bold this year, but again, I want to continue to caution us to continue using the same playbook, so to speak, for a better lack of word, than we've always used, because what result is it really getting us?
All right. Thank you, Ms. Rice. All right. Are we ready for a vote? Seeing no other hands, we'll move to an immediate vote. This is not a vote on the agenda. This is a vote on Ms. Edmonds' amendment to amend the agenda. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Can I get a show of hands? We'll do the ayes and nays. So, Ms. Gordon, what this means is we'll just go around the table and have each board member vote aye or nay. And typically we do start with you, so I'll just call out the names. Voting, this is for Ms. Edmonds' amendment. Ms. Gordon. Mr. Hershey. Dr. Ng.
Nay.
Ms. Edmonds.
Aye.
The chair will vote aye. Vice Chair Swanson.
Nay.
Ms. Mahaffey. Ms. Edmonds. I'm sorry. I apologize to both of you. Ms. Caulfield.
Nay.
And Ms. Rice.
Yay.
All right. So by my count, the amendment fails. All right. But I thought that was a good it did pass. Okay, so it does pass 5-4. All right. It's been a long night. I don't have my glasses. All right, I apologize. All right, so the language will be incorporated. All right, Ms. Edmonds.
This is not an amendment, just a technical correction, please. Under that section, we talked a lot about the prioritize the needs of public schools. It is more than $616 million.
Okay. Dr. Taylor, did you want to address that?
Yeah, so I wanted to know exactly what those numbers represent, the 616 million. The information that we got from Mr. Nieder shows that it was 594. So,
That's what was allocated.
okay.
But I mean, if it's... Sorry, not to... This came from the state budget, from HB 10, from the language in the bill.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not correct, I mean...
So, Mr. Chair, what I would propose is that we verify the numbers, because the numbers that I have from Mr. Nieder were verified by the department. I know this is from Public School First, but there may be some misinterpretation of what the exact numbers are. So if everybody is okay with us verifying those final numbers, and I can email that to the board, and that's what we would reflect. But it is somewhere between what was verified as 594 million and the 616 million, so it's basically in the ballpark.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Taylor. Is everyone comfortable with that? All right, thank you. All right, further discussion, further amendments. Ms. Caulfield, did you have a comment on the agenda as a whole?
Yes, well, I had a question in reference to the hunger and support for academics, addressing the lunches. And we have on there no-cost breakfast, so we're asking for basically all families to receive free breakfast. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay, so I guess I was going to propose an amendment to actually, or a motion to, do I make the motion first and then explain why later? Is that how you want me to do it?
Yeah, typically you'd make the motion, they'd see if there's a second, and if there is, then you could debate the
Okay,
amendment.
so I was going to make a motion to remove that last paragraph and add language in there to ask for more funding and quality foods. I could say it better, but that was my motion.
Okay, so just because we're hearing it for the first time, can you point us again, we see the addressing student hunger to support academics.
It says North Carolina, and I wrote over it, so I can't read it, but basically the remaining gap for no-cost breakfast. So basically, I'm trying to put verbiage that do not want to address taking any free and reduced or breakfast away from children who need it, but rather than everybody getting it, that seems like it's money that could be spent elsewhere, but to make sure that it's provided, but to also ask for additional funding towards better quality food, because we do hear about the costs that it takes to do that, so we clearly don't have adequate funding for that.
Okay, so just to be clear on what it will read now after you've amended it,
And I wrote all over it, so.
after the proposed amendment.
Bear with me for a second here. I wrote in all different directions. So rather than closing the remaining gap for no breakfast, to provide,
So it'd say North Carolina can provide, will provide.
or to provide adequate funding for improved, sorry, I'm trying to write it out straight because I wrote it all sloppy all over. To provide adequate funding for improved nutrition.
Okay, so that to provide starts after what word?
So North Carolina, I guess, I mean, we could keep it simple and just say North Carolina, or ask the state, or state will provide.
North Carolina will provide, and then the rest of the
Mhm.
language as you have it?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
and that replaces the rest of the sentence?
Mhm.
Okay.
You could leave the estimated investment, but I mean.
Where the foundation future learning is established with an estimated of investment of approximately 140 million?
Yeah, but is that 140 million coming from the no-cost breakfast? Is that how they came up with that number?
That's what it would cost to provide that,
Yeah.
statewide, not even just Wake County.
I mean, we could just ask for the funding to be
Mhm.
put towards that.
Or do you want to just use that same number with an estimated investment of approximately 140
Yes.
million?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we'll just change that can close the remaining gap for no-cost breakfast in grades K through 5 with will or can provide,
Adequate funding for
Adequate
improved
funding.
nutrition.
okay. All right.
So, Mr. Chair, if I could make one comment, and I just realized this, that it says breakfast, but that should be meals, not just breakfast.
So that is not just
Yeah,
breakfast?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an input, okay. All right. So that's an important clarification. We need to change if it is not amended. If it is amendment, that language just comes out to be replaced with the new language. All right. You've heard Ms. Caulfield's amendment. Before we can discuss it, is there a second? Second. We have a second from Mr. Swanson. All right. Questions and discussion. Ms. Edmonds, you have a...
again.
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't have the language. I just need it repeated, that's all.
Okay. Ms. Caulfield, do you
I'm going
mind?
to type it out better. North Carolina. Can you bear with me 1 second?
Ms. Caulfield, would you be able to email us your language, too,
Yes.
so we can read
Yeah,
it?
so
Okay.
you can move on. Thank you.
Okay. So if you don't mind, we'll take just a very brief recess to get that typed out and shared, and then we'll read it out to everyone in the audience so that you can hear it too. All right? We'll be in a short recess.
Sorry, I wrote all over it, and then couldn't make
All right. If we can come back together, I believe we have the language. Ms. Caulfield will email that to everyone for their consideration. I'll give you a minute just to return to your seats. All right. All right, we're back. And so, Ms. Caulfield, do you have the language that you can email to the board members? Oh, there it goes right there. All right, so we have an amendment from Ms. Caulfield. It has been it has been seconded by Mr. Swanson. North Carolina should provide adequate funding for improved nutrition for grades K through 5, where the foundation for future learning is established, with an estimated investment of approximately $140 million. So it's asking the state for an appropriation of $140 million. And it just changes the wording there to provide adequate nutrition for grades K through 5. It has been moved. It has been seconded. Ms. Caulfield, do you want to speak to the amendment?
So I know in some of the prior meetings that we had about nutrition, Ms. DeLuca was able to really express how hard it is to provide nutrition, proper nutrition, and that we were giving vegetables basically to some of the students that didn't have, funds, or what the meals cost per chicken, per vegetable. And this is really going more towards putting the money towards quality food for our children, because even if they go in and they get the breakfast, it's got to be something other than donuts and sweet tea, but they have to have some healthy proteins in there. So this is really more to make sure they have an adequate meal and improve the nutrition, since it is more costly to do so.
All right. Are there questions or discussion? Ms. Edmonds?
So can we put the universal meals piece back in? Like, I'm fine with this language, but can we say NC should because that's what it is, right? $140 million would be universal meals for K-12. Is that correct? Excuse me, K-5. That's right here. I'm sorry. NC should provide adequate funding for universal meals, for K-5 universal meals, and improved nutrition, where the foundation of future learning. I don't know how to wordsmith it, but it just, to me, I think we want to convey that that is what we're talking about. Not just improved nutrition, but to say that $140 million would cover it. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes, go ahead,
So
Ms. Caulfield.
basically, I was asking to remove the universal piece, and the reason I say that is because that costs a lot of money with 160,000 students, and there are plenty of people, whether it be allergies, sensory eaters, picky eaters, whatever it is, that will never have the meal. So rather than provide that and have waste, because I've been to some of these programs where it just kind of goes in the garbage, to provide it for the families in need, but also to make sure that we take the extra money that's needed and put it towards nutritious meals for them. Not necessarily universal, where we spend the money on everybody when people aren't going to use it, so we could use that savings to make sure they have better food.
All right, thank you, Ms. Caulfield. We have some other comments, other questions. I'll start with Ms. Rice and then Ms. Mahaffey.
So I thank Ms. Caulfield for her amendment. However, I will have to share that I can support improved nutrition part for K through 5. However, I'm not sure how we would actually word a space of saying we're only going to pay for this or that, and then that money is going to go. I don't think it necessarily works like that. That we're, either we ask for a certain amount of the money, and it happens, that money can be, and then the controlling of the nutrition part of our food, if we have to be reminded, is a federal situation, and we're dealing with our state legislatures, and they don't fund that part. So we can't change the nutritional values of our food because it's a federally funded situation of what the requirements are. If I'm wrong, please someone from our staff that works in that area to help us. So I know that we can ask for funding to fund our food K through 12, K through 5, which is going back to our universal piece, but we can't change the menu, or we can't make certain stances be what's already federally mandated of what's considered nutritious unless we change an entire menu within our Wake County schools that says, we'll take this money, but that's only for, I think Superintendent Taylor says that we were changing from breakfast to meals, period. That's K through 5 students only. Even though I still have a problem with the fact that we have other family, children, the whole gamut K through 12, who are still going to school hungry and going to school and getting up at 5 in the morning and not returning home until sometimes 6 and 7 o'clock at night after sports and don't have any food to eat. So I'm concerned about, we're not even considering that as well. But I'll make this short. Again, I hope that I'm making sense. We can't say we're going to only take a certain amount of money, then we can take the rest of the money and put it towards something nutritional. We have federal mandates that we must adhere to, too. So, Dr. Taylor, please fix that.
Yes, so to add the clarity to that, it is about supplementing the federal school lunch program. And so what we know is that $140 million is what would help close that remaining gap, knowing that we already have a reimbursement program that feeds a certain number of students. The other clarity I want to add to the board is that remember that when we say no-cost meals, that doesn't necessarily mean that every student in the school is going to eat. And so what a school will do is predict the number of students that eat school meals, and that's what they prepare. So I could go to a school and it's 600 elementary students enrolled, but they may only prepare 400 meals, and there are students that will still continue to bring their own meals in. So the $140 million is to adjust for all of those that currently are not able to take advantage of free or reduced meals, knowing that others will still bring their own meals.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Additional thoughts and comments? Would you like to respond to that or come back? I saw Mr. Hershey has a question. Ms. Mahaffey has a question. All right. If you don't have a response, I can go to Ms.
Just
Haffey
for
and then come back to you.
clarity, I just wanted to ask, Dr. Taylor, when you, and I understand, how it comes down from federal and the statutes, and we have to, but that's like the minimum. I'm asking, we could still go above and beyond. I don't think federal is going to say, no, you can't have, high-quality chicken. I'm confused by that, so I need clarity. And the other question was, when you say no-cost meal, so then this is not a universal program? Because I know that was a discussion beforehand. I thought that's what was being said here in a different way.
Yeah, so it would be universal meals for all the kids that are K-5, meaning that any student that came to school and wanted to eat, it would be at no cost and it would be covered. But with that, we recognize that all students will not participate. And so that means that if every kid participated, then the funding would be there to do that. But we know that's not the case. The other part with the school lunch program is that because it is an enterprise program, we still have to make sure that it is a profitable program. And so if the district or any district wanted to go above and beyond to provide more nutritious meals, then the district would just simply have to take on that cost. And so we will submit a reimbursement for a meal. The federal government will give that to us. And if that reimbursement is $4 a child, that's what we get. But to provide a nutritious meal that goes above and beyond, if that is a $6 cost, then we as a district will have to pay that additional $2, and that's where the profitability piece comes in. But it's just a commitment that we'd have to make as a district and as a state.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. And I have a question on it too, but I see other questions. I'll go to those first. Ms. Mahaffey and then Mr. Hershey.
Thank you. So I hesitate to remove the piece talking about no-cost meals for students in K-5. I think that is something that we have talked about. This is something that we are in alignment with our county commissioners, looking to, this being a step to expand to K-12. Looking at that first paragraph doesn't have an ask with it. And as Ms. DeLuca, when she was here, noted that our costs for our goods and things that we purchase are not keeping up with inflation. And so I'm curious if this is really two asks. One in the first paragraph, because it does address inflation and supplementing funding for student meal programs and rising food costs, insufficient federal support. If there's a way to include a dollar amount to cover that gap that we're seeing, so that we're able to pay our school nutrition workers, so that we're not increasing lunch prices. Because I think there's two issues. Number one, the cost of a meal is going up and rising because the cost of food has gone up. And we want to be able to provide meals for all students. So I guess I'm curious as to why they're, and again, I know I was a part of the conversation, saw this earlier, but, do we need to add some kind of both and dollar amount? Am I making sense? Okay.
I got you.
I'm just making sure that, because it is almost 9 o'clock at night, so, so for me, I do not want to eliminate that second paragraph. I think it's vital for our students. I also recognize that at the rate we're going, our school meals for our other children that are not covered by this, or if this universal meals part for K-5 does not pass, will continue to rise. And so I don't know what the dollar amount is, or if we need to ascribe a dollar amount, but an ask in that piece talking about how to, I'm not able to wordsmith, and I'm not asking for a recess. I just.
Yeah, Dr. Taylor, do you want to?
Yeah, so I understand exactly what you're talking about. What we can do is go back and determine what that number would look like to make the programs profitable. So I know that's what you're talking about. It is different from the second ask. So we will identify a number, and I will share that with the chair and the vice chair. If you all are okay with us identifying the number and putting it in, we'd be able to do that. If you know what the language will be, we could do that. Well, that would be.
I mean, at some point, I think if it's adding statistics, unless we dispute the statistics, that's more editorial, and I'm willing to grant that to staff. Is that sort of where everyone is? Okay, Mr. Hershey.
No, I agree with Ms. Maffey. I appreciate Ms. Caulfield's bringing this up. I think you put it into that first paragraph, keep the second line the way it is, and I think that covers both. And I trust the superintendent to do that language, and then our chair and vice chair to verify, make sure we're good to go.
All right, thank you. Ms. Mahaffey.
Parliamentarily, since Ms. Caulfield's suggested removing that second paragraph, do we have to do an amendment to her amendment to keep the second paragraph, or are we good? Yeah, or do we just vote it down?
Let me ask Mr. Malone what he thinks.
So first of all, you haven't voted to approve her
Correct.
amendment. So that you could vote on that and it could die, then you could get another cleaner amendment that does exactly what you're trying to do, would be one way to do it.
Would we rather do that than trying to like amend an amendment and then have to vote again? Okay, all right.
Make it clean.
All right. So in that case, are we ready to take a vote on this amendment that went around to everybody? That's not what we just talked about with the reordering, but rather just what you see in your email.
Okay.
All right? All right. All in favor of the amendment in email, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. That amendment fails. And so now, Ms. Caulfield, I will recognize you for a new amendment. Do you have a new amendment?
So now the challenge of the language again. So I'm okay with what Ms. Mahaffey suggested, and then adding in the language. Hold on, I'm dealing with two different ones here. If we can just remove So you're saying, Dr. Taylor, that you could come up with a number that would require? So if we were to remove that second part of the language and just add in either before the without the last sentence or at the last sentence, that NC should provide adequate funding for improved nutrition for grades K to 5.
Okay, so the amendment is to add language, North Carolina should provide adequate funding for improved nutrition for grades K-5.
Can we say K-12?
Yeah.
Because if it's two
Mhm.
separate issues, I don't know why we need to leave them out.
Sure. I think
Okay.
the K-5 was only looking at what the cost would have been
Right.
for that one specific program. So if it's just improved nutrition, let's say K-12.
Right.
Okay. North Carolina should provide adequate funding for improved nutrition for grades K-12.
Mhm.
And then the dollar amount to be provided by staff. Okay. All right. So we have a motion from Ms. Caulfield, seconded by Mr. Swanson. Does everyone understand the amendment?
No.
Okay, so Ms. Caulfield, do you want to clarify where that falls on the agenda?
After rising food costs coupled with insufficient federal support create significant challenges for meal programs. Without adequate nutrition, students face various challenges that impact their well-being and ability to focus on learning. North Carolina should provide adequate funding for improved nutrition for grades K to 12.
Okay. Has everyone heard and understands the amendment? Okay, it has been seconded by Vice Chair Swanson. Is there any questions? Are there any questions? Is there any debate, any discussion? Dr. Ng?
So that statement is really more aspirational than actual ask, correct?
I think it's more like a policy goal.
Yeah, I think the actual ask will come when the dollar amount that staff will put in there in order to cover those pieces, because that's a really long paragraph with the inclusion of the additional sentence from Ms. Caulfield to make sure that we're better able to cover the cost of food in North Carolina.
All right. Are we ready for a vote? All in favor of the amendment? Oh, Ms. Rice.
Sorry, just for clarification very quickly. So we're going to keep the second paragraph. We're going to take out no-cost breakfast, and we're going to talk about meals, no-cost meals for grades K through 12. Just clarifying.
No.
When he cleans up, not that part, honey.
Keep this in.
No, I understand what we're doing in the top paragraph. I'm asking about the second paragraph when Superintendent Taylor puts in the adequate numbers that we're doing. I'm simply asking, are we keeping the no-cost meals in grades K through 5? So we're keeping the second paragraph the same, right? Except for changing it from breakfast to meals. I
Right.
know the superintendent said that.
It changes from breakfast to meals.
Okay, that's it.
But then the only other amendment is what Ms.
No,
Caulfield.
I understand and aware of her
Okay.
amendment. That makes sense.
That it doesn't delete.
Right. I'm just trying to clarify, point of clarity.
All right.
Thanks.
Understood. All right. Now, are we ready for a vote on the amendment? I hope so. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amendment passes. Now, I know there was one other amendment that was suggested at the work session. Ms. Caulfield had sent some language. I tried to condense it for her. I've sent that to her.
Yes.
Is that anything that you want to
Yes.
offer at this time?
Yes,
Okay.
and thank you for helping me wordsmith that. I just sent it to the board so everybody will have it in front of them. And it's basically about our flexibility in spending that is similar to charter-like spending in Restart schools.
So this is what we talked about in the work session. I'll read it for anyone listening. Research has shown conclusively that Restart schools benefiting from these schools' authorization to use charter-like flexibility to address specific needs and barriers to school improvement have resulted in improved academic growth and achievement. The General Assembly should expand the use of flexibility to more public schools, strengthening the systems and structure of the schools, leading to more positive student outcomes. Oh,
And thank you, Chair Haggerty, for helping me wordsmith that.
and I'm just making sure that Dr. Taylor got a copy of that as well. Okay. All right. Is there a second for the amendment?
Second.
Second from Ms. Edmonds. All right. Would anyone like to speak to the amendment? I'll go with Mr. Swanson.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Swanson, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair Hagerty. I just had a question, which I'm in favor for it. I just want to kind of tighten up the language. I think the charter-like flexibility can be a little confusing because we just passed a motion that said you are against charter school, and now you want the reference. That was your motion.
No, it was private school.
Private school.
Private school
It's still the
vouchers.
same. It's still in the same.
No, sir. No, they're not.
Oh,
let me
hold
speak.
on. One. I do understand and agree with the point that there is a distinction, but I do want to recognize the speakers and respect that they have the floor.
Thank
Vice
you.
Chair Swanson.
Thank you. I was just saying, let's just tighten up the language a little bit, just so it's a little bit more conducive without, yeah.
Thank you, Vice Chair Swanson. I appreciate that. And I will tell you that I was actually the genesis of that because Ms. Caulfield had originally did not have that charter-like flexibility. And what I was trying to do in the drafting was use the specific language we've seen some education advocates use, so the General Assembly couldn't misconstrue it to mean that we were just asking for more local control without their authority. But I understand your point.
So if I could follow up.
Please.
I think having more local control would be a language or a word that I would feel more comfortable inserting on this.
All right. Thank you. So let's go around. Ms. Caulfield, since it was your amendment, and then we'll go to Ms. Mahaffey and Ms. Rice, and then we'll come back around to this side.
So, Mr. Swanson, I appreciate what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying. I think the reason that we mentioned both Restart and Charter-like was to express how that flexibility allows the schools, in both situations, allows the schools to do what they need, which is kind of the point of the ask. And Mr. Malone, in reference to your question, it would go under local flexibility over operation issues.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. I believe, Ms. Rice, did you have, I saw Ms. Mahaffey. I just want to make sure I haven't missed anyone.
No.
Okay. Ms. Mahaffey.
My question was, where is it going? So that's been answered.
I believe that local operations and the flexibility is really what we're talking about here. Coming back around to this side, Ms. Edmonds?
Just where we landed with the tightening.
It's been discussed, but no formal change has been suggested
Okay.
yet. And, if someone has one, I don't know about you, I would welcome it. I don't have any pride of authorship here. Anyone else on this side? If not, we'll come back over here. Dr. Ng and then Ms. Rice.
I'm fine with the language of that proposal. I was just wondering whether we are keeping that first sentence after local flexibility over operational issues.
You're going to have to be more specific. I'm sorry.
Under
Several windows
the
open.
second page, the local flexibility over operational issues title.
Yes, it says, "The Wake County Board of Education also calls on the North Carolina General Assembly to grant greater local flexibility over operational issues, allowing the district to address local needs more effectively and efficiently."
So we're keeping that sentence.
That was not part of the amendment.
Okay. So it would fit under that sentence?
What would fit under that category? See, the local flexibility of operational issues is more of a category, and then you have three issues: the school calendar flexibility, K-3 class size flexibility, the exploring local funding options, and here it would be like restart-like flexibility, I think, could be.
Oh, okay. So it's another subsection?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Rice.
Yeah, that was the question. Are we creating another subsection or title up under the amendment that Ms. Caulfield is requesting?
Okay. Ms. Mahaffey.
Thank you. I'm curious, because this is a pretty open-ended statement, saying that the General Assembly should expand the use of flexibility to more public schools, strengthening the systems and structures of the school, leading to more positive student outcomes. Is it the intent to leave it open so that the General Assembly can decide what that looks like? Because I know Restart schools have a certain formula, or do we have a formula that we'd like to propose in order to, and again, I know it's late, but I wasn't aware that these amendments were coming until 5 minutes ago.
Understood. And I appreciate everyone kind of like bearing with us as we get some of these you maybe haven't had time to look through and really think through. Again, I know that the intent that Ms. Caulfield expressed was looking at our Restart schools, being able to provide that same sort of flexibility at our other public schools. But beyond that, I'll defer to her for however she'd like it to read.
Yeah, I guess my question is, are we proposing that they propose a new funding formula or a new set of criteria in order to have that flexibility, or are we asking that all public schools be given that flexibility?
Yeah, it was basically for all to have, in explaining it, I can't put all of it in a paragraph, but we actually have to fail for a certain amount of years in order to receive that advantage of flexibility spending to put it where we are, where we need it. And with having 200 schools and so many different needs, when the state is controlling what and where we're spending it, you may have more ESL in one school, you may have more special needs in another school. So just asking in general for us to have this restart flexibility, it is kind of reversing that whole situation where we have the flexibility. I mean, obviously, if something is not going well, then we will put in some kind of, improvement plan or something for that school. But this is basically flip-flopping the situation we have right now.
So in hearing that, I believe it would be another amendment, correct me if I'm wrong, to change more in that last sentence to all. So expand the use of flexibility to all public schools?
Yeah, and I'll admit, when I used the term more, just, as a qualifier, so for example, if they were not willing to grant it to all public schools, but they would grant it to, like all Title I schools, right? Or as a pilot, or, all schools of a certain performance level. I didn't know what their tolerance would be, so that's why it was that. But if Ms. Caulfield's intent is all, then let's change it to all.
Yeah, I'm fine with changing it to all.
All right. Dr. A?
I just got a friendly proposal. That language, I feel like it's more like I thought it would fit under that first sentence. The Wake County Board of Education also calls upon the North Carolina General Assembly to grant greater local flexibility. I feel like after that sentence, it would justify what we're asking in the subsequent points. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. I think the difference is that, and it's a minor difference, but the restart flexibility is much broader than those three categories. Yeah. So it's an expansion beyond that, although those restart schools do have some of those other flexibilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so I heard a friendly amendment suggested. I heard another amendment suggested before that in terms of questions about the language. So where are we? Do we want to look at a set like we did before with a second amendment, or do we want to try to just fix this one?
I think.
Can we just fix it?
I'll say Vice Chair Swanson.
I think, Mr. Chair, I would just propose for the sake of time that we just give staff that authority, or, we combine a wordsmith and let staff figure out how to condense the language or whatnot.
So let me ask you this. Would you all be, we are on we were being very deliberate about the timing because of bill deadlines and things like that coming up. But at the same time, I don't want you to have an agenda that you don't feel comfortable with. So we could try to push through. We could say, well, we can't get it quite perfect, or we could bring this back at our next meeting. And, the benefits, pros and cons, what we're doing is we could spend more time and perfect the language and get a little bit better. Give staff a chance to, again, do some of this editing, tighten it up, make sure it says what we want it to say. We do potentially sacrifice some opportunity in terms of some bill deadlines. I don't know how big a con that really is in the grand scheme of things, because I think a lot of these issues will emerge from the legislature on their own, and we're stating our position, as opposed to it won't happen but for Wake County asking for it. So I'm very comfortable if we want to defer and let staff tighten that up, but I'll put it to y'all. Ms. Rice?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to encourage us as a board that we have access to this information in assembly on Friday. I think that since we're talking about the essence of time, I think that our constituents deserve for us to work on what we need to work on, if it's on our action item, to complete the action item on the day that we're supposed to take the action. Considering the fact that we've had this information since Friday, I think that in the full transparency and responsibility as board members, we should make these amendments over the course of our weekend before Tuesday gets here. To share or share, or at least have something so that we won't talk about it's getting late, it's time. I'm just being honest. It's getting late, it's time, and so therefore we feel like we have to rush. This is one day out of the week that we actually have to stay a little bit later, and so I just want us to be a little bit mindful sometimes when we're talking about moving forward versus taking our time to do the job that people have asked us to do, and that maybe it's a possibility that we might take a little bit more of our time between Friday to Monday to kind of hash out a few things that we might need to see or look at, that we may possibly want to make changes for the sake of time, if we're actually, if time is something that we're concerned with. So just a suggestion, but not trying to spank anybody, but just a suggestion.
And if I can respond to that, I mean, I think all of us would benefit had we seen amendments ahead of time to really digest them and fully understand them. At the same time, we can't really put them in assembly, and we can't decide them ahead of time because that requires board action. But what I do think, if I understand you, Ms. Rice, is that...
I don't think you do understand me. Of course, we can't put an amendment in assembly before time, but you can write your amendment down as a board member of your thoughts from the legislative agenda that we've looked at. We knew that it was going to come. If you had any changes or thoughts, I'm simply saying as a way of being efficient, we may need to, and we know that we make amendments, if we don't like what we see, if we could possibly digest that in our time between Friday to Monday of thoughts we might have and possible language, because we're looking at something, not that we put, I mean, no, of course we can't put our,
Okay,
in assembly,
and
so yeah.
what I was going to suggest
okay.
is what you said there, but I heard assembly, and that just threw me off. I
Oh, yeah, no,
apologize.
no, we know protocol.
All right. So, at the same time, like I said, we do have legislative deadlines, and so I just want to see where everyone is. Mr. Hershey?
Friendly amendment to Ms. Call. I wordsmithed it real quick, just
Okay.
a couple, and I'm getting thumbs ups, I think.
Okay, has this been sent by email?
Yes.
All right.
And I will defer to the parliamentarian experts on what I should do. for the
Vice Chair
language.
Swanson, do you have a comment?
Yes, just make sure that you're including Ms.
She's on
Allen in these emails for the minute
Sorry, I had
purpose.
just responded
Any
to all.
amendments that you're sending, make sure she gets them.
Oh, is she not in the board group yet? Oh, I apologize.
He-
I put board, and it's usually a group. Okay, I
right.
apologize. Didn't mean to leave you.
All
out.
of
I thought
these
you were
things that
in there.
we're sharing by email are part of the official meeting and should be included in the minutes, and so that's why it's very important for Ms. Allen to get that. And Vice Chair Swanson, I want to thank you for lifting that up. All right, so the language for Mr. Hershey, if everyone sees it, would say, research has shown conclusively that Restart schools benefiting from these schools' authorization to use flexibility to address specific needs and barriers to school improvements have resulted in improved academic growth and achievement. The General Assembly should expand the use of Restart school flexibility to all public schools, strengthening the systems and structures of the school, leading to more positive student outcomes. I believe that captures what Ms. Caulfield was saying and some of the comments around the table.
I will second Mr. Hershey's friendly amendment.
Well, for parliamentary procedure,
Oh, okay.
we would need to vote on the first wording, vote it down, and then take this one if Ms. Caulfield would accept it.
Yes.
All right. All in favor of the original amendment, which was under consideration, with the original language you saw in email, please say aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. All right, that amendment fails. Ms. Caulfield, do you have a new amendment? The one that looks exactly like what Mr. Hershey
Yes.
has.
So I make a motion to amend the original amendment to say research has shown conclusively that Restart schools benefiting from these schools' authorization to use flexibility to address specific needs and barriers to school improvement have resulted in improved academic growth and achievement. The General Assembly shall expand the use of Restart School flexibility to all public schools, strengthening the systems and structures of the school, leading to more positive student outcomes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote? All right, all in favor of, I'm seeing anyone ready to speak, so all in favor of the new amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the new amendment has been incorporated. Vice Chair Swanson.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to call the question to, if there's no more amendments, I move that I want to go back to the original motion of approving the legislative agenda for the 25 school year.
Okay.
Second.
Vice Chair Swanson has the prerogative to call the previous question. This cuts off all debate. It takes a two-thirds motion. All in favor of the call for previous question, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. We'll now move into an immediate vote on the 2025 legislative agenda as amended. All board members voting in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the legislative agenda has been adopted unanimously. Thank you all for your hard work, for your patience.
I make a motion, we go into closed session for reasons stated on the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to go into closed session for the reasons so stated on the agenda, by Ms. Mahaffey, seconded by Ms. Rice. All in favor of moving to closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. We'll now move to closed session.
I did, many times. So